I grew up 30 minutes south of Iowa City. Grew up a fan of theirs, and I knew what Nebraska football was all about. A great deal of respect for the program, the history, the tradition, and it's exciting to be a part of it. I was like, guys, I said, you guys are fairly big kids. You know, I know 17's not a big kid, but he's a tough kid. But there's some good sized kids out there, you know. I mean, 16, 18, 4. I mean, these guys, 29, these guys are big bodies. I'm like, why are you not blocking worth the crap on the perimeter? I mean, it's embarrassing. I mean, you got being a receiver, you think, the want touches, throw me the ball. First thing I said to him, if you don't start blocking out there, then you're not going to get the ball thrown to you. At the end of the day, it's about competition. If there's competition, then people play better. If there's not competition, then people relax. And, I think our job as coaches, especially in this situation right now, is for, I'll say, look, this is what I see. If you don't like it, then do something about it in practice,
Yeah, he's been around it for a while, so he knows exactly what he's looking for, and he knows exactly what the play is supposed to look like. And, he kind of just helps to, design different plays, design certain people to get the ball. So, yeah, I think his experience is the biggest thing for myself and kind of everybody involved.
All right, good morning, everybody. Usually after a day with Dana, like yesterday, we would discuss that and in depth of things that he said for the good, the bad, and the ugly, and how excited people were here to hear some fresh observations on Nebraska football. We will talk about that. We will apologize once again for having a show that talks about searching for six. But we are not going to start that way this morning. As you've become well known on this show, any show that's on this radio station, there is an open for the show. It has all of our names in it. It's exciting. We're yucking it up by now. We're laughing. The name of the show is not Mornings with Sharp and Handley anymore. We have a member of our family, our 1620 The Zone family, our morning family, that is no longer with us. So what I'm about to say about what went down and what the direction of this time slot is, I've not been told what I can and can't say, and I would not allow that to happen because one of the endearing qualities I think of mornings on the Zone is we're very honest and we're very transparent. And this is a tough day for all of us because we were informed yesterday, shortly after the show was over, that NRG Media was making a change to the morning show. And they were going in a different direction, and they were not going to renew Nick's contract. And Nick's last show was about 20 hours ago, which we did not know. So I've been in this business long enough to not make any sense of things that go on, but just do your job and do it to the best of your ability and make sure that you provide for the listeners that give us their time. You provide them the best product and you just do your job. And we are lucky enough to be able to talk sports with all of you and work at a radio station like this. But, I think the one thing about this business is, you developed a relationship with listeners who, again, you guys and gals are so kind to give your time to us, to the entire radio station. And it's almost like we feel like family. Like, you know us, we know you. You listen to our ups and downs, our craziness, whether it be with our family or our personal life, and you don't get to say goodbye. So I'm going to try, and after a long conversation yesterday with Nick, I'm going to get to say his goodbye, what he would have said on air. Now, Nick and I have been friends for well over 15 years, and I would not hesitate to share a microphone with him. We had some great times. We had some great conversations, as Jimmy can attest to, on and off the air. I think
yesterday.
I think I learned a lot from Nick, and Nick is a true professional, and he's one of the good ones. Excuse me. I'm battling a cold, so I'm trying to fight through that as well. He's one of the good ones in the business who treats people the right way and is a really good family man, has a great family who a lot of you, as Nick made the transition from 590 to 1620, got to know about his family, and they are wonderful people. And good things happen to people that are like Nick, and good things will happen to him. And in his contract here, he was not allowed to do Nebraska baseball play-by-play. I'm very hopeful that that will be rectified, that Nick next spring will be back in the booth at Haymarket Park doing Nebraska baseball, which he thoroughly enjoys. People have asked, will he still be doing PA for UNO hockey? And my response is, why wouldn't he?
Hell yes.
I mean, he's the voice, the PA voice of Baxter Arena.
Mhm.
So all of those things. So I say this with Nick is doing well. I mean, he's handling this about as well as he can. I'm bummed for a friend that lost a gig, which in our pursuit 2 years ago of the candidates that we looked to fill the morning show job. Nick and I had a long discussion. We talked about our friendship, wanting to do a show together. We'd never been able to really do a full show. We've done guest appearances on each other's show. And so we were able to make it happen. But moving forward, Nick is no longer at 1620. People will also wonder what is going to happen with mornings. The name of the show right now is The Gary Sharp Show. The only thing I have said is that better be temporary. I don't like the name of the show, but we have to have a name of the show. So the name is temporary. I think over the next couple of weeks, you will hear familiar voices that will be sitting in with myself and Jimmy, and we will provide the same kind of show that we were doing with Nick. Now, after that, what is the role and what is going to happen with this time slot? That is to be determined. We do not know what's going to happen between 6 and 10 moving forward. I will tell you this, that at a radio station that we are celebrating our 25th anniversary this year, there is the one quality about this place is the stability of people that have sat in these chairs for a long time. Like I've been here for 12 years. John and Josh have been here for a long time. We haven't had much change. And when we have change, people wonder, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to the zone? Well, as you've seen and you've heard, we kind of just keep moving on, and it's next man up, and we keep doing what we do and what we've done for 25 years at 1620 The Zone, and that is be the best sports station in all of Nebraska and one of the top sports stations in all of America. So we will move forward, and we will continue to provide a show between 6 and 10. I do have confidence in our corporate people because they have a keen interest in 1620 The Zone continuing to be successful, whether they are in our corporate office or here locally. I just don't know what the direction is. So when I do know, whatever happens with all of us in the mornings, all of you great listeners will be the first to know of what is going to be 6 to 10 on 1620 The Zone. But I'm it's a tough morning because a friend of mine lost a gig that, I went to bat for him to come here. Nick is talented. Nick will end up somewhere else. And again, I hope it's Nebraska baseball. I hope he's in the booth at Haymarket Park. And I think there is that opportunity for him. So that's what I know now. I hate to deliver this news. I know Nick put out a social media post last night, super, very Nickish, all class. So now you know what the decision was made here, but we do move forward. We're going to take a break here, and then we'll come back and we'll get into the show. It's going to be Jimmy and myself today. Again, over the next week, 2 weeks, you will hear some familiar voices with yours truly, and we'll keep waking you up every morning. But I just wanted to get everybody up to speed on that. I didn't want to just start the show and like we're all normal, because it's not. Because a guy that I sat next to for 2 years is not here. But 1620 The Zone is here, and we will come back. We'll get into yesterday in Lincoln. Also, last night on ESPN, among other things, as we roll till 10, It's the Gary Sharp Show on 1620 The Zone. All right. Now let's talk. Yesterday in Lincoln, Dana Holgorsen met the media for the first time, said some things. You've had plenty of time to listen to things that he said. Some people that he currently works with or coaches either had a good day or a bad day. But one of the biggest takeaways I had, well, first of all, I thought at one point living in Morgantown was Dana Holgorsen and Bob Huggins. Just think about that for a moment.
Yeah.
That in Morgantown, West Virginia, you've been to Morgantown.
Yeah.
Morgantown is an interesting college city because it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's not the easiest thing to get to. When I lived in Wheeling, West Virginia, to go to Morgantown, because I worked with a guy that was a diehard WVU fan, and he took me to a couple of football games, you don't just drive like across the state.
Mm-hmm.
We had to drive up to the bottom outskirts of Pittsburgh and then go south. So Morgantown is, if you fly into Pittsburgh and then you drive south to Morgantown. So it's kind of isolated a little bit, but like it reeks party town when you drive into Morgantown.
It's a fun time.
They got these weird, I noticed, and the football tailgating is fantastic. I mean, people get after it and they love their Mountaineers. It's a whole different world in West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
What they call it, wild, wonderful West Virginia. I used to do those commercials. But they have, did you notice that the transportation on their campuses, those little like pods, those carts?
I've always wanted to ride one of those.
Yeah, so that's how kids get around campus. But it just reeks of like a party town. Like you walk in there and it smells like alcohol.
Yeah.
Or you drive in. Once you hit the outskirts of Morgantown, it smells like alcohol. But just think about it. Those people at West Virginia at one time had
same time
Bob Huggins and Dana Holgorsen coaching their two major programs at the same exact time.
My liver hurts thinking about it.
I mean, yeah. But two guys who,
not judging because I've done it too there.
Two guys who keep it 100. Is that what the kids say?
I think so.
Did I just mispronounce that?
With the Dana necklace.
But, you always look at like, does the personality, do the basketball and football coach at a major university, do they have to match like the personality, like how they go about their business, how they talk, how, what they stand for, all of that? Does it help them? I mean, is it completely different when you have a guy like Tom Osborne compared to Danny Nee, who were polar opposites, like completely different, like their personalities. Like you would never expect T.O. to get done with a post-game show with Kent Pavelka and within 5 minutes was at Barry's. Danny would get done with a post-game show. He would have somebody start his car. He would walk out of the Vanning Center, he'd be in his car and he'd be at Barry's and he'd be recapping the game for everybody that was there. More people like, I'll hang around after the game. No, people so they get to Barry's, so they got a seat next to Danny. So like complete opposites. But at West Virginia, when I was listening to him yesterday, and I only see West Virginia, I don't see Houston. I don't see Oklahoma State.
Same.
I don't see TCU. He is West Virginia to me. I'm thinking, dang, at West Virginia, at WVU, they had Dana and Bob together. But I know the reaction yesterday to what he said was, oh my gosh, it's a fresh perspective. People have not been that honest before. That's true. I think we listen to coaches talk so much. And sometimes they're honest, but we hear them a lot. And that's the first time that you've heard Dana in that role as Nebraska offensive coordinator. Now, I have lots of thoughts on this, but what I heard was Mike Leach. If you've ever heard Mike Leach speak, and Dana is straight off the Mike Leach coaching tree, Mike Leach was quirky as you know what, but Mike Leach was very honest in assessment of players for the good and the bad. And so when Dana was talking yesterday, and he has it's a fresh response to questions. It's a fresh look on one side of the ball that was greatly needed and exposes some things and should make you a little bit startled about things in a short amount of time a guy from the outside could see compared to maybe a position coach that is in it every day that either chose not to see it or just for whatever reason. But the timing is right for a guy that is from the outside to come in and say, you know what, that's not working. Boy, you are working. But I heard Mike Leach yesterday. So essentially, you heard a head coach up there speaking to the media and asking questions as an offensive coordinator. If you've heard any Chip Kelly interviews, since Chip Kelly left UCLA to go to Ohio State and just call ball. Not call boosters, not call NIL, not call anybody else. Chip Kelly is like different. Okay? And that's what and Chip Kelly still talks like a head coach, but he's an offensive coordinator. And the wear and tear of being a head coach, Chip Kelly looks refreshed. Dana Holgorsen, and I know he's a little bit gruff and doesn't shave, and he's got the hair.
He's Dana.
People were very disappointed, or at least I was, that he didn't show up with a visor yesterday, because I can't see Dana Holgorsen in wearing a hat or not a hat. He's always got to be in a visor to me. But he talked like a head coach, and that's what he is. He's a head coach that may be going the Chip Kelly route of, I just want to coach ball. You know what? I've been a head coach before. I'm going to make $4.5 million from Houston, whether I work or not. And I like to be around the game. This is in my wheelhouse. I got somebody who essentially begged me to come and help them fix what is wrong.
This is what I do.
Why,
I can help.
Why not? So he was talking to the media like he was a head coach, but he was an offensive coordinator. But if you remember, get past like the sound bites of Mike Leach that are funny and things he says. Whenever Mike Leach would speak, he would be honest. The no block, no rock is something that Mike Leach preached over and over and over. It was a mantra. But a lot of his teams, they would follow that. That's a question either in real time or at the end of the season of that became a talking point before the year began. And how come it didn't come to fruition until a guy from the outside walked in and said, guys, you're not doing a very good job. You need to do a better job or you're not going to get the ball. And all of a sudden guys respond. I mean, did it take a guy from the outside coming in that you don't have to Google? Like you are? No, I think that's a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a big deal that a guy from the outside walks in the door and you don't have to Google him. You know exactly. So you know the name. You may not know much about him. But I'll tell you, it's easier to go on YouTube and search Dana Holgorsen and get all these coaching videos than it is Marcus Satterfield. So you know a guy's coming in. And there also might be the fear factor of we might be playing for our job. I know that I can come back and I'm a young buck, but man, am I playing for my job? So what do I got to do? I mean, you got to look in the mirror. If you've been laissez-faire and you've been just coasting and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I got this fear of I might not have a job next year. And all of a sudden you kick it into gear. Come on, man. But Mike Leach, whenever he talked to the media, it was never any sugarcoating. It was a fresh perspective. It was unique. It was different. It wasn't sound bites. It was, you ask a good question, I'm going to give you an honest answer, and we're going to see if you can handle that answer or not. Like, oh my gosh, coaches aren't supposed to say that. Well, it doesn't matter what the coach is saying to us as the consumer. It matters what the coach is saying to the player. And I would hope that any coach that is worth a damn, when he talks to the media, he is the same exact person that he is when he's talking to his players. Think about this, Jimmy, for a moment. So when they were dancing with Dana back in the wintertime, and it got down the road, but I do believe they gave him some time to think about it. It wasn't like you're here on campus, we need an answer before you get back on the plane and go to Texas. He wanted some time off. He was burnt out after the Houston thing. He wanted to just sit for a little bit. And so Nebraska said, excuse me, we'll give you a little bit of time to figure it out. And he was cool with that. But I wonder if at that time, if he looked at Nebraska's roster and looked at Nebraska's staff and said, man, this gets me excited, maybe his opinion changes. Compared to the scenario now where guy calls you up and says, hey, we need some help, and you're the timing is right, the perspective you have, what you do is fine, and he says, I'm there.
It's 30 minutes away. It can be there in 10.
But this is all to say, if a guy that is very transparent and you don't have to go, man, is he BSing us? Is that coaching cliche? No, it's just a guy talking ball. And that's kind of how he's been throughout his entire career whenever he has a microphone in front of him, whether he's talking to coaches at a coaching clinic or he's talking to media. But if he's like that with a media opportunity, he's got to be exactly like that on the field, because you can't lie to kids that are 18 to 22 anymore. All right? They can see right through it.
Yep.
And they question everything. Back when we were 18 to 22, someone could tell us to do blank, 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 and we would be like, nah. Now, or we'd say, yeah, you got it. I'll do anything for you. Now kids are like, are you sure? The sky is blue. Are you sure? What kind of blue is that? So you can't lie to kids. That's just the same about competition. All right. One way to wreck a locker room is in practice, those guys are together and they see who the better player is. And the next thing you know, the player that is not the better player is starting. What does that do to that position group room? I mean, it makes it a little bit tough in there, right? So if he's transparent and he's honest and he just who he is, whether he be with lights in front of him answering questions, or sit on a practice field, or in a room full of athletes, or even more so, and then we kind of got a glimpse into this of something he said about a comment he made to E.J. Barthel at halftime of the game on Saturday is, what is he like with his own coaches? But I think even a more fascinating question is, because he's in the trust tree with Rule. I mean, Rule has essentially turned the side of the ball, which Rule is not, that's not his strength, turned a side of the ball over to a guy that just came off the streets. So imagine what the honesty in the conversation is like between the guy off the streets and the head coach when it comes to players, style, and assistant coaches. Think about those conversations.
Some uncomfortable conversations.
Well, okay.
But needed.
But does it come at the right time?
Absolutely.
I mean,
is what's going on right now working? The answer is no. So,
well, okay. So you look at, in a short amount of time, maybe a tweak here or there, still only 10 points, a little over 300 yards, not good enough. I think it'll be different this week because now you've seen as he is only numbers guy. I don't think he knows many names, and that's fine. That they will evolve a little bit more on offense because he's seen guys do certain things when they're put in situations and if they can excel or not. So I think you're going to see
some ideas.
You'll see like the next step, but it isn't going to be this, like 25 would be the grandiose. Okay, now we're balling. That guy looks completely different. That guy looks completely different. Jesus, what did you do to that guy? But the honest questions of, that guy just isn't for me. They don't respect that guy. That guy, whatever he's teaching or whatever he's allowing to be taught, they just don't respect that guy. They're not playing hard. And it took me to come in here and put the fear of God in them that they might lose their job for them to start performing. Man, we got a problem there. We got to look at that. I mean, the timing is right because of where Nebraska is and where they have to go. And you make a change and you have to be uncomfortable. Well, what's always the great line? Great businesses, great individuals, great teams. The great line is you have to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable. I mean, if you think of this scenario and let's say you're Garrett McGuire, you're EJ Barthel, and you know that you were listening in yesterday, you're in your office and you have it up on your computer and you're listening to Tony White and then Dana Holgorsen speak and then the quarterback speak. You're like, okay, all right. Probably you already know that. I mean, you already know that some of the things he said publicly, he's already said to you and your position group, and maybe he's taken over your position group and is not talking to you so you can talk to your players. He's talking directly to the players. You just happen to be the position coach that is in the way. So now you're uncomfortable. Can you be comfortable being uncomfortable where you don't get very casual? I mean, it's a fascinating dynamic when you add a personality like Dana Holgorsen because he's really kind of the complete opposite of a majority of that staff.
Mm-hmm.
Or that staff isn't, they might be out there a little bit and a little bit unique, but they kind of take the lead from their head coach. And now you have a guy that showed up and he's been a head coach before, and there is a huge amount of respect for him that Rule is just letting him go. Fix that. I'm over here on the defensive side of the ball. We're going to get that fixed. You fix the offense. But now people are uncomfortable because you're doing things that are different. Things are being said to you. You're being held accountable. And can you be comfortable being uncomfortable so that you don't get casual and you don't get like, you know what? It's great to play football here. This is kind of cool. You know what? We just go out and we play and, we have a little bit of competition. We go some ones-on-ones and you know what? It's I get to be on that 74-man travel roster, and I get to fly in the charter plane. I get to stay in a nice hotel. We get the nice meals before the game. We get to go see a movie.
Mm-hmm.
We get the free popcorn,
the travel outfit,
and then you get the travel outfit, and you get all the people that are high-fiving you as you're walking into the stadium. And man, that's pretty cool. You know what? If I don't play, that's okay. Okay, I still on the sidelines. You know what? My name's in the program. You know what? I'm gonna run out for the tunnel walk, and I'm gonna end up on Husker Vision. People are gonna cheer, and it's gonna be really, really cool. That's comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
That's casual. I think there have been times during this stretch of Nebraska football where the whole damn program is too comfortable. It's just everybody is casual. And now you can sense a sense of urgency throughout the entire operation for whether it has something to do with the future when it comes to finances, whether it just becomes, you know what, sucks to be losing. His comment yesterday, one of the other comments that I LOL'd at is how caught off guard he was that Nebraska's bowl streak is that long.
Most college football fans would be like, seriously? Especially around our age, a little older, Nebraska? That doesn't make sense.
Well, guy,
it's Nebraska.
He gets ball.
Yeah.
Okay, he likes ball. But for him to, it wasn't in the moment, but I mean, you feel it when you walk into this program that thing hangs over Nebraska, that they have not been to a bowl game since 2016. But part of his response yesterday is something that I think is great for all of us as a good takeaway. Whether you're like, man, that's refreshing, or there's some stuff that he said that it's okay to be angry about. Like, how is that being allowed to happen? But it comes at the right time of getting an outsider perspective because we talk about it every day. We follow it every day. We ride the roller coaster of Nebraska football every day. It affects our life, usually for the bad. It should not affect your life that much.
It used to be that way.
But, I mean, still today, I mean, that's why we have a radio station that has 12 or 14 hours of local programming every day.
That's
because of a football program. Whether it's good or bad, but it's nice and it's completely different at this point inside of the season to have somebody come in and give you an outsider's perspective. Hey, you guys suck. You guys aren't doing well. You know what? That guy, though, how come he's not playing? We'll get to whoever the mystery player is because we all have who we think it is. I think I have two guys who I would like it to be, but just a different look. Like, isn't that what a consultant is supposed to do? Mm-hmm. Like we have
the Bobs. That's what we were joking about.
Well, we have consultants in this business, and they will come in. We used to have a really good consultant for radio, and this was a few program directors ago, that would come in like once or twice a year, and they would get to know all of us. They would listen to the radio station. They would talk to the program director, and then coming from the market that they did, and I think they were in St. Louis at the time, so a much larger market than Omaha, which technically is the 72nd largest radio market. They would come in, and and we have we have a, hey, we all have a tendency to get really comfortable. Man, we think we have all the answers. We're doing it right. This is how I've always done it. This is, I read the book and it tells me to do this, this, and this. I followed another guy and he did this, this, and this. And so I'm going to follow exactly that, because that's how you're supposed to do it. And you know what? That's the most comfortable that I am, because I can just, it becomes turnkey. And we had this consultant that came in and, he's from St. Louis. And I don't know that St. Louis is like an aggressive market. I think St. Louis is probably for sports talk radio is a good, I think they're down to one sports talk station now. They used to have three. I think they're down to one sports talk station, the ESPN affiliate.
Just talk Cardinals and they'll be happy.
But he would come in and, St. Louis isn't a market like New York or Boston where phone calls are a big deal. Like in New York and Boston, you could show up and go, hey, we got 4 hours, give the phone numbers, and you just do phone calls all day. Mike Francesa, that was his show. He did phone calls. I mean, the callers were the show. On the East Coast, callers in sports talk radio, I'm going a little inside baseball here.
Like WIP in Philly. And we joke about it.
The callers are huge. It's more like here in the Midwest and, maybe even less on the West Coast, callers are not as a big a thing.
They supplement, but they don't.
Yeah, they're not the show. So to tie this back into Holgorsen, quote unquote, consultant, and then all of a sudden becoming the OC coming in. So we had this outsider, and one of the things he said is, you guys all kind of sound the same. And this is about 8 years ago. And he said, you guys all kind of sound the same.
Like,
you guys got to do the same. You guys kind of do the same thing. And I will tell you, I mean, what was started here was a banger in a couple of alliterations of USC. And you're like, man, we'll just do that. You can't repeat what Kevin and Michael were doing.
Yeah.
But the guy was like, you guys can all kind of sound the same. You all kind of have the same
Can't recreate
take.
Camelot.
They have same takes and stuff like that. And you kind of do the same things. And he offered up some ideas. And I remember somebody who doesn't work here anymore, they were like, I don't know if we could do that. And he didn't use the phrase, but he's like, you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable and you got to change. He goes, I'm seeing this from an outsider. He goes, I don't know any of you guys other than I've gotten to meet you and I've listened to you on air. I don't know any of you. And also, I don't have a stake in you. So I'm not here to benefit from your success. Now, I want you to do well because you guys hired me as a consultant. So
you may not like what I say, but this is why you brought me.
And I think he alluded to that yesterday when, it's important that Nebraska locks him down, and I think he will be the offensive coordinator next year. He doesn't make that move without some assurances on both sides. But if you think about it, he doesn't right now have a stake in the future of Nebraska football. He's brought in here for 3 games and possibly a bowl game, and maybe not even a bowl game. He's brought in here. So it's not like, if Nebraska doesn't make a bowl game, he's out $66,000 and he's not going to be able to sleep at night. But if he comes in here, he knows that I've been asked to do a job, and I'm going to do the job. So it's what I'm getting at. I think it comes along at the right time, whether it be desperation, urgency, or whatever. It's a move by a CEO, a guy that probably is better as a CEO than X's and O's and Matt Rule. That's my opinion. Is an outsider perspective that looks at your operation, and you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable because he's going to say stuff to you about your operation that is probably counter to what you think is good and what you're doing well. And somebody who has been in it a long time, but is new to the party, didn't recruit those kids, hasn't seen them play for the most part, but now has been up close with them for 2+ weeks. He's going to say stuff to you and you're going to go, okay.
Yeah. Starts with, now you trust me, right? Yes.
Well, I think that's a key part of this whole relationship is I'm kind of turning over the keys to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like, I got to get these boys to 6 wins.
Coaches are control freaks. Look at
we both know that personally.
I have worked with coaches. I've been around coaches. They are paranoid and they are control freaks. Okay. They want to have their hands on everything.
Everything.
But isn't it the good CEO or the coach that is a good delegator, that is comfortable in what they do, and they stay in their lane, because not every coach is a CEO / X's and O's. Those are very, very rare that you find a person that can do both of those jobs really well in the game of football. Okay, they are very, very few out there, and the ones that do are absolute bangers, and they're hanging banners, and they're in parades in January or February. But if you stay in your lane and can admit that, you know what, I'm a good program builder, I'm a good recruiter, I am a good culture guy, I am a good family man, that I'm not a fake family guy, and that what I do with my family, my players see, so we have a family. So that's what I do well. And as I said, Matt Rule needs to be better September through December, because I think he's got January through August fixed, but Nebraska needs the September through December head football coach. But if you say, I think I'm good at the CEO stuff. I mean, I think that's what I thrive in. Where my weakness might be is just the pure X's and O's. We know that there's a weakness of the game management, the flow of a game. So if you can admit your faults outside and say, yeah, let's see if I can go out and find somebody. You do, because you make hires in football and staffs of familiarity. That's why the Luke Fickell and Phil Longo thing is mysterious, because the OC and the DC are two of the most important hires, and I never got a sense that Fickell was all in, and they were completely different from each other. So those are important. And you want people that you're familiar with to get off the ground and get running. And you also have to understand, I got to make a change. If it's not working, I got to make a change. Because if you wait too long, the change is going to be made with you. So I love the fresh perspective yesterday. I think Dana came across as, from the Mike Leach tree of questions that he answered, and also he's a teacher. On a program that presents himself as a developmental program, you can't have an abundance of developmental coaches. And they just got a guy who I think is a teacher, who teaches the game of football to be played the right way. So the timing of his arrival is perfect for where Nebraska is. Is it going to get him to 6? You better hope to God it does. And
Those
then
extra practices are more important now.
But are they?
Like 15 more with Dana?
Okay. Oh, with Dana.
That's what I mean.
Yes. Okay, I'm with you there.
Continue to work on the craft with him.
I'm wondering about the young guys and if they're going to play.
Yeah.
You can practice, but I would like some game reps. So the timing is right. It's refreshing yesterday to hear somebody from an outside perspective tell all of us basically what we've been saying. And now it took somebody who's got more cachet to say it out loud. And we go, instead of telling the radio guy, what are you talking about? Guy comes in from the outside that's got more cachet, that has a necklace that has his name on it, and you don't have to Google him. And he says what we've been saying. And you're like, well, here we go. That was a day with Dana yesterday. More on a couple of things, because I think Nebraska not only added Chip Kelly, but they added Charlie McBride in Dana Holgorsen.
Nice.
We will get into that as we roll till 10. Coming up later, Jay Moore stops by with his weekly breakdown, and then Brandon Vogel from counterread.com. We'll get some texts, some emails, some tweets. If you did not listen to the opening segment, I highly advise you go back and listen to that. We've had a change here in mornings as of right now, and it's a temporary. The show is called The Gary Sharp Show. Jimmy's got an update coming up next. You're listening to The Gary Sharp Show. 1620 The Zone.
Nebraska's fifth straight win of the season. Women's basketball subdued. I hate these stories after what could potentially be a severe knee injury to starting forward Natalie Potts. The Huskers kept a strong start going as they beat North Alabama last night at PBA 85-48. But with 5 minutes left in the second quarter, Potts went down in what appeared to be a non-contact injury while on defense. Immediately grabbed her knee and screamed in pain. After about 1 minute, she was taken directly to the locker room as her teammates quickly gathered in tight huddle. And you and I have both been there when those type of things happen. And there's no other way to say it than that sucks, because we know exactly what that sounds like and all that goes with it. And so,
non-contact injury.
yeah.
And it seems like there is one major injury a year with Nebraska women's basketball, and it's usually to one of their better players. And Nellie Potts was becoming one of the better players in the Big Ten. She was, I think, through their first 4 games, was their best player, or their at least 1B.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's tough, because then, it wasn't at the end of the game.
Yeah.
You have the second half to play, and she comes back out in street clothes and crutches, and you can
And the girls know.
Yeah,
everyone knows.
Once you saw it,
yep,
you're like, I've seen that before.
Yep.
So you could tell that that's a very tight-knit team, with the emotions, whether it be somebody that is in Natalie Potts' same class, or like a Britt Prince that is a freshman.
Mm-hmm.
They're built a little bit differently to overcome an injury, but that's a major injury, and dang it, knee ligaments.
Yeah.
Female knee ligaments.
Yeah. And I've said before, in all the years I called women's basketball, that was my greatest fear, because the thing that you forget is you get to know these people personally, you get to know their families. So your fear was, please protect these girls. Don't let anything happen to them, because you would feel that too emotionally, because you think of them and you think of the family. So reading that, yes, got a sick feeling in my stomach. So shout out to her, speedy recovery, and all that good stuff. The Huskers did win, and let's keep going on. Omaha Volleyball completed its regular season with a 4-set victory over UMKC last night. The Mavs went 14-2 in Summit League play. Will be the second seed in the league tournament, which begins Sunday in Kansas City. The top seed, South Dakota State, which beat South Dakota yesterday to finish 15-1. Omaha's first tourney match will be in the semifinals next Monday. College football in its inaugural season. As a member of the new 87-team Big Ten, Oregon has officially clinched a spot in the conference title game on a Tuesday. The Ducks, again number 1 in this week's college football playoff rankings, appeared to have clinched a berth in the championship when they beat Wisconsin on Saturday to go 11-0 and 8-0 in league play. The Big Ten, however, did not confirm that was the case until yesterday afternoon. This is like that tiebreaker documentary on the Big Ten Network where they all decided in a boardroom.
This is such a dumb look.
Yeah.
So bring back divisions, because math is hard. 18-team divisions, we get this. But essentially, Oregon won that has the biggest win in a bye week, because during a bye week, they go to the conference championship game, and you announce it late on an afternoon on a Tuesday. It's such a dumb look by the Big Ten. And it took triple checking tiebreakers to figure out that Oregon had already clinched one of the 2 spots. Bring back divisions.
We could have told you that.
Math is hard. Bring back divisions.
Yeah.
Legends, leaders.
Exactly. Let's go with that.
You can't make it north, south, east, west.
No.
Just legends, leaders.
Yeah.
Bring it back. Let everybody embrace it. Be comfortable being uncomfortable with legends and leaders, and let everybody else figure it out.
And there's the theme of the day. The 3 teams vying for the other spot are Indiana, Ohio State, they play this weekend, and Penn State. Each of those teams have 2 conference games remaining, including that big showdown in Columbus on Saturday. Boise State moved ahead of BYU in the rankings, as the Broncos are now in position to receive a first-round bye ahead of the potential Big 12 champion. The top 5 remained unchanged, with the Ducks and the Buckeyes, and Texas, Penn State, and Indiana rounding it up. But the biggest storyline, this is no surprise if you know how this is all going, is how far they dropped BYU after a 17-13 loss to perennial football power Kansas at home on Saturday night, very late. BYU now 9-1, moved down 8 spots from number 6 to number 14, falling behind number 12 Boise State. Using the current rankings, Oregon, Texas, Miami, Boise State would be the 4 highest-rated conference champions who would receive first-round byes in the playoff. BYU would be included in the playoff as the 5th highest-rated conference champion, but would be the number 12 seed and have to play in the first round on the road. And this is for Steve. I'm sorry, buddy. The Boston Bruins have fired coach Jim Montgomery after stumbling to a losing record in their first 20 games. Associate coach Joe Sacco was elevated to interim coach. The Bruins are off to an 8-9-3 start. Remember, they had the best record a couple of years ago. That's why it's always said. And that seems to happen a lot in hockey where it turns quickly on someone. And this has happened again.
They got beat by Columbus the other night. They got booed off the ice. I think I saw a post. The 3 coaches that were up for the Jack Adams Award in 2023 all are no longer at the place in which they garnered that nomination.
Yeah.
And Jim Montgomery was one of those with the Bruins.
Yeah. Now, usually what happens in hockey is a lot of these guys end up back and they end up taking over a program and winning there. So I'm sure that'll be the case for him.
College basketball last night, Maryland, by the way, beat Canisius by 71. They had a 38-2 run. But the game of the night, Marquette beat Purdue. Top of the Big East is really good.
Yeah.
Marquette, if they guard like they did last night, and you have Cam Jones who had a triple-double, and you have Stevie Mitchell, because they beat Purdue. Purdue didn't shoot the basketball very well, and I think was really disrupted by the play of the guards by Marquette. God, if they could get that kind of guard play when you get to March, they might have a chance. They're tough. That's the top of the Big East is going to be rather intriguing because UConn won last night as well, and they played a tomato can and blew them out. But how about this? So Shaka Smart, who is not the most popular guy in this town when he brings Marquette in here, 80-30.
It's pretty good.
Well,
poised for a big year.
He made a name when he was at VCU and his style of play, and I don't blame him for taking the bigger job. It's like, I don't know, in a lesser extent, and I may be way off here. It's like the Barry Collier. So, Barry Collier at Butler, they were March Cinderellas.
Mm-hmm.
And he got offered the job in Nebraska, much better conference, bigger paycheck. Why not take it? Was not equipped to be the head coach at Nebraska. His style was more conducive to being at a place like Butler, smaller school. So it didn't work out at Nebraska. I look at Shaka Smart. He was ideal for VCU. Texas was too much. I think he tried to do too much. I think they expected too much out of him at Texas. I don't think he was equipped to get off and running, but it's about where you, find your landing spot. And his landing spot was at a program that is all about basketball.
Yeah, pretty damn perfect.
That's probably another thing. I had this conversation with Coach Collier, and he's a dear friend, now retired after going back to Butler and being the athletic director. Is some coaches are better equipped at coaching at schools that don't have football or don't have a major football program. Butler has football, but it's basketball is Butler.
Yeah.
You go to Texas, football is everything. Shaka goes from VCU where they don't have football. He goes to Texas, and there's a multitude of things at Texas at the time, athletic director, all of that stuff going on. Now he goes back to a school that doesn't have football, and basketball is number one. Look at Mac.
And tradition.
Look at Mac.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa State didn't work out. Now, when Mac was there, I would say Iowa State basketball was higher than football, but it was still a power conference that had a major football program. And now he comes to Creighton where men's basketball is the sole focus.
It's perfect for him.
Yeah.
Great
perfect,
boss.
Ideal. Oh,
the best boss.
The situation, yeah, you're right. The scenario of who you work for, where you're at, how it's supported can help you. Then it's on you. You either suck or you're great. Mm-hmm. But Shaka's now 80-30. 80-30. Has he regained his swag from when he was at VCU where people are like, man, is that guy is at least a top 15 coach? When he's at Texas, you're like, that guy's a bum. Okay, why is he growing hair? Mm-hmm. And now he goes to Marquette and he's 80-30, and they look good last night.
Why don't you tuck in your shirt?
Maybe Purdue.
Why do you have a long sleeve shirt under? Why do you look like you're playing golf?
Big Ten basketball is going to be a little interesting this year. Yeah. All right. Thanks for the update, Jimmy. 7:08. A little bit later, Jay Moore and Brandon Vogel joins us. But first on the 42 Degree The Source hotline, here is old man Doug. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Gary. One of your better opening speeches that I've heard, and I couldn't agree with you more. The one word that you didn't say, and I've been saying it, is these players are pampered. And you call it comfortable, but it's, they just keep trotting the same people out there. They enjoy the best training table, the best recovery facilities. this, that, and the other thing. And I refuse to believe that we're that far behind on NIL. I just refuse to believe. And that includes number 15. And no one's, I mean, and I've gone through this in managing people as well. Sometimes you try to be nice and super positive all the time, and then you just find that that's not working. And so I do appreciate Rule for trying to make some changes. You just take a coach like McGuire as an example. I really think he'll be a good coach in time, but it's a kind of I don't want to say unfair to him, but this should not be his first major assistant job. And training here isn't bad, but I don't know if you saw Sam's poll out on X. I have a hard time calling X. I call it Twitter, but
It's Twitter.
It says, how vital is it to your continued fandom that Nebraska football make a bowl game? And I don't know if this is good or bad numbers, but very is 34%, somewhat is 16%, so there's 50%. And then 47% say they're in no matter what. And honestly, some of those kinds of fans are the reason that we're in the spot we're in. I know this sounds crazy, but we've accepted it. Oh, we're just gonna, there's a certain number of them are gonna keep showing up. And I'm not a big booster, but I do spend, some decent money and particularly time and financial investment. And it's just, it's maddening, but I certainly loved what Holgorsen had to say yesterday. And now, if only we could win press conferences like this, because some people do need to be called out. And Sipple's been pretty consistent on saying, some of this is the players. And, we've had some bad breaks, but, why does it always come down to the last player, the last series? Why can't we?
I'm Doug. I said that the other day, and that's a Rule thing. He's like, and I get it. In the Big Ten, in games like against Wisconsin and Iowa, you expect it to come down to the last possession, and you want that mentality that, you know what, we're going to break through one of these days, and we're going to have a quarterback that's going to drive down the field, and we're going to score. But why does it have to come down to the last possession? Why can't the last possession be a 4-minute offense to bleed the clock out and you win a football game by one score? But you finish the game with the lead and have the ball. I wish he would change that mindset instead of, we got to be prepared if it's going to be a one-score game at the end. Well, how about trying to find a way so it's not a one-score game?
Right. I like I said, I'm still in on Rule, but actually, I had a listener reach out to me via email and ask for my tickets for Wisconsin. I did get reeled back in, and primarily because of what I saw of Holgorsen yesterday, and just some of the things that and Wisconsin firing their OC. I think that gives us a chance.
So let me ask you a quick question here, Doug. It can be a yes or no answer, but we only got a couple of minutes. You, as somebody who, I know you support the program. You're also a Jasker. Do you feel like, for maybe the first time in a while, the guy that is in the power chair / athletic director, the guy that has the golden headset / head football coach, the caretakers of Nebraska football have the same sense of urgency you have as a fan to get this right and to get this going in the right direction?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say yes. I like what I've seen from Dannon. I was a big Trev Alberts fan until he left. And I know he's a friend of yours. But I mean, you're kind of, as a native son, that one was a tough one to take. Van Horn left and went to Arkansas as an example, but that was his alma mater or whatever. And there were some people that were butthurt over that, including me. But then,
Trev did what Trev had to do for Trev, and he's not here, so.
No, I understand. I'm big on loyalty and gratitude and that kind of thing. And then, I just think the players need to show some to the fans and the coaches, because I don't think they have a sense of urgency. And I've always felt like this program on the football side sometimes, and we talk a lot about it, I get it. They all want to go to the NFL. No one's saying they don't, but there's times where I watch the way people play and how they treat them. And other programs, it's the same way. It shouldn't be about that, and it never used to be about pro football around here. We would have a mobile quarterback that wasn't an NFL quarterback, and we won games. And I'm not saying we go back to the triple option. I know that's a real old man take, so to speak. But the other thing is, like a guy like Harburg, he's sitting there, and I think he can really help us when we get down to the 10-yard line. And I'm not by any means saying bench Dylan, but there's times where I do think he needs, when he misses wide open receivers, is not seeing it, and just for the coaches to say, okay, what went through your head? Why did you not see it? And I think he's kind of got a deer in the headlights right now. That kid is shook. He's got the arm talent, but sliding 5 yards short of a first down. And I get it. He took a big hit, but they mark you. And I will tell you this: Nebraska gets the worst spots in the universe. I was yelling at the TV at the top of my lungs on the one where they gave him the first down, and I don't know why these officials are such in a hurry to move those sticks. And that was the bobbled play that got us to the 4th and 1. But it's maddening. Lastly, I haven't heard from Nebraska ball Mike.
He's got a couple of things going on. I'll try and put both of you in contact with each other.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Doug. Lots in there. I want to push back a little bit on the notion that there are guys that are in Lincoln that are on a roster that don't want to win. They may not know how to win, so it comes across as laissez-faire. If you are in a football program and you're not here to win and be successful, if you don't, it's miserable. Look at all of the people that have come that we liked that were not on winning teams here that get forgotten about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jay Moore's kind of an outlier.
Oh, you were telling me about the Callahan era.
Look at the guys. Yeah, the guys that played in the Callahan era, even in the Frost era.
Mm-hmm.
There are very few that have gone on to stick around and are still very visible. There's not a lot of Adrian Martinez's and Jay Moores that are out there. So I don't think there are a multitude of guys that don't want to win. They may not know how to win. Or, yeah, we want to win. Show me how. Well, I think there was a little insight yesterday into, and this is the part of, I think it's important to get to 6 and then be angry about why was this stuff allowed to happen and it can't happen again, is competition was used. God, I think competition, an atmosphere of competition, when it's real, not just, man, we're going to have guys that are going to battle for a job and no one's got their job secured and you're going to have to earn it every single week. Yeah, sometimes that becomes a little, word lettuce. But if you have an atmosphere of competition, what does that breed? You're always competing. You compete at everything. You want to be the first guy to get to the training table, okay? You want to be the guy that eats the most steak.
It's Pete Carroll book.
Everything is a friggin' competition, okay? And so then when you get in a competition that has to do with your sport and you got to win, what does that do? So I think there are plenty of players that haven't won in Lincoln that either have the mental block, it still blows me away that we've gone this long with young men that do not know how to handle adversity or have the discipline to do their job when they're squeezed, and mix that with players that want to win, have come from winning programs, but haven't been taught how to win or haven't gotten validated for putting in the work because then it equates to a win. I mean, it's the whole damn psychology of where Nebraska football is and the fact that we're sitting here on the 20th of November and we're having discussions about searching for 6. But players want to win. I think it'd be pretty easy in a program if you were around a guy that didn't want to win, his teammates would move you out. Now, part of the 105 discussion, you're going to have fewer. They're going to be more of a glaring weakness of, that guy not holding up his end of the bargain. I mean, 105, you can't make a mistake. You maybe can have 3 or 4 misses, but your evaluation is going to have to be better. An evaluation of their talent and also evaluation of their DNA. The vetting process for football players in recruiting has sped up so quickly that maybe you don't get to know the ins and outs of them. But the feeling of, well, guys just don't want to win. I think there are guys in the past that I know that were there for the Adidas gear. Okay,
And it's
because
nice.
I saw them and I knew them and I liked them. Okay, they were good interviews or they were nice people, but they were never going to play. And they were just like, yeah, you know what, man, it's kind of cool.
Look at this hoodie. It's
I
soft.
just want to hang around long enough to get my Letterman's jacket.
It's warm.
And then once I get that, man, it'll be cool. Okay, I'll have that for life. But one of the things that Holgorsen said yesterday was a little startling. Was he talked about competition? God, if I'm a competitor, that's what I want. If I'm a young kid and I'm coming into a situation where I've been battling now for 9-10 weeks, and I know I'm playing well, but the guy that is in that spot just keeps that spot, but he's not competing every day like I am.
Mm-hmm.
But yet he gets to go out there and play and I don't, or he gets more snaps than I don't. But then a fresh perspective comes out. He's like, we're here to create competition. And then for Holgorsen to say, I found somebody yesterday, you don't think that kids' ears perked up and they went, ooh, that could be me.
Yeah.
That could be me. And who is that?
Now you work a little harder.
Who is that mystery person? It's all about the atmosphere you create.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this goes back to rule. I mean, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable that a head coach comes in from the outside and he says things about your program that are like, that does not match what you've stood for.
There's not much filter, which is why he's there also.
Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you are a full-time member of the staff, can you do the same thing?
I mean, with Dana, you could say, this is what you signed up for.
Rule's assistants take his lead. Does Dana take his own lead? Or does Rule say, you lead? Let me learn from you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I also love the aspect of coaches that have been in the business a long time that still know that they can learn and grow.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not afraid to bring in people that might be better than them. That's how I always thought you should assemble a staff.
Mm-hmm.
Is you hire people that are better than you. And so what if they go and get another job? All right, go find another guy that's better than you.
Yeah.
But instead of getting yes men, you get people that their skill set is better than you. You do what you do well, and that's the reason you got that job. But then you have people that are better than you. And it's okay, and you're comfortable with that.
And you learn from them. Exactly.
Learn and grow. That might be, I mean, it might be a little open up the Komoda to what Rule is doing with this at his stage, not only at Nebraska, but his stage in his coaching career, where the last place he was at, he was a failure. Didn't go well. You could say, I don't know if you want to go full failure at Nebraska. It just hasn't gone well. I mean, you can't be under 500, 22 games into your tenure. All right, take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll get to some calls, some emails, and some tweets. And something that Doug said about the wide receivers and Garrett McGuire. I think it's a 2-year thing that has really come to the forefront of a young coach coaching older players and relating to older players compared to younger players that we will get into. Jay Moore, Brandon Vogel a little bit later. It's the Gary Sharp Show with Jimmy on 1620 The Zone. All right, you want a crazy stat this weekend of college football. So in the SEC, Kentucky plays in Austin against Texas. Why doesn't Texas get the Indiana treatment or the empty calorie Penn State treatment?
We know why.
The whole strength of schedule thing last night got out of control. I don't know how.
Some things never change.
By the way, I don't know how Joey Galloway comes back from his comments about sitting Rourke against Ohio State. Like, how do you come back from that to have any credibility?
I can't take that seriously. I'm going to sit him against
So
your biggest game of the year.
He said to sit Curtis Rourke against Ohio State, and he compared it to Jordan Travis of Florida State in their situation last year.
Okay, then. I'm sure Fox would be just thrilled at the idea of that. Well, Indiana's going to play their backups today against Ohio State.
Well, he was angry. He's angry at the process, and then he makes a comment like that. I'm like, you know what? Does Kurt Cignetti look like a guy that is soft and is a coward?
Yeah.
That is trying to Jones the system, that he would sit his quarterback in the biggest game in the history of Indiana football?
I'd like to see someone ask Cignetti that question, see how it goes.
I am so glad that Indiana and Ohio State play this weekend because games matter. And everything will be reset next Tuesday depending on the outcome of that game.
Exactly.
But games matter. But there were a couple of things last night that, whether it be Missouri is still ranked, I think the committee just gives up after 16.
Yeah.
Like if you're from 17 to 25, it's just you pull a name out of a hat and you put it in there, because Missouri is 0-3 against ranked teams. I think they've been outscored like 110 to 49 or something like that. But they continue to be ranked. But if you're in the SEC, you're like, that's great because that benefits us if you've beaten Missouri or if Missouri has been on your schedule. The Boise State one that you had in the update, Jimmy, Boise State possibly getting a home playoff game.
How about that blue turf?
I think that says a lot about your conference that your beloved Jayhawks are in.
Just win the last two, and they're going to score 50 on Saturday. But you're not wrong. You're not wrong. BYU got screwed.
I think Boise State being in a position in which they could have a bye and be one of the top 4 seeds. Now, it has been presented that only the top 4 seeds can be out of the Power 4. That is incorrect. Mm-hmm. But it shows you where the Big 12 is, that Boise State actually could get a bye. Now, Boise State's resume is going to get raked through the coals. They have a close loss against Oregon. They played the schedule that they have. They have probably the runner-up in the Heisman. They're going to take a hit the next couple of weeks because I think they have Wyoming and Oregon State. So those are not teams on their schedule. I mean, do we expect next week Boise State still to be in that spot?
No.
The best first most deserving. These are the great Wednesday conversations. But last night brought up a couple of red flags. But the games matter.
Yeah.
I love it. Games matter. The biggest game in Indiana football history is Saturday at Ohio State, and they just lost their center to a season-ending injury. Mm-hmm. It's the third lineman that's gone down, and their offensive line, they had to move some guys around against Nebraska. Their offensive line,
the Huskers had a field day.
Well, but I thought their offensive line was starting to gel. If you go the Penn State game right afterwards, and until this injury, and it's their center that goes down, and he is out for the year. But regardless, that's the line hasn't changed much. It's 11.5. But it's the biggest game ever in Indiana. But games matter, and that will reset the entire bracket depending on what happens in that outcome. But back to the point I was going to make. So you have Kentucky and Texas are playing. This is one of the wilder stats. So when the guys from Lexington, Kentucky get on the charter and they fly to Austin, it will be the furthest west that Kentucky football has ever played.
Ever?
Wow. Ever played.
So
they've never
non-cons against the Pac-10.
They've never played the Pac-10 or the Pac-12
or the Mountain West or the WAC.
Lexington, Kentucky to Austin is, buy me some time here.
Let's see. In the grand scheme of things, it's not that far, but yeah, they never played any Big 12, any Big 8 teams, so it's nice to see them venturing out of their comfort zone.
Okay, it's 1,069 miles from Lexington to Austin.
Which is basically length of Texas.
But that'll be the furthest west that Kentucky football has ever played this weekend when it's the Wildcats and the Horns.
Well, hope they go out to the Salt Lick then. Have a meal.
I think there are a lot of people that are hoping that Mark Stoops gets taken out to the Salt Lick and then never is brought back.
Yeah, maybe Mark
They make
Stoops
more.
thinks that.
Kentucky football makes more excuses for why they're not winning. They complain about the NIL, and then they tell you that they have enough money for free agency, and then they play in a stadium where nobody wants to go there and watch them play.
Right. Decent sized stadium for a basketball school.
And a guy that they kept, they tried to get rid of. They're like, hey, Texas A&M, take him. And then he has to come back, and then you're stuck with him. And now fans want him gone? People, it's a cult down at Texas A&M, but I give them credit. Those people stood up they fought, just like Nebraska fans fought. No, Houston, nut. Texas A&M fans, like the Tennessee fans fought against Shiano.
Mm-hmm.
Texas A&M fans fought against Mark Stoops. I actually think it's hurt Mark Stoops going back to Kentucky.
Yeah.
Because people are like, that guy had 1 foot out the door. He didn't want to be here. He's rumored to be at Texas A&M. There was a huge uproar. Basically, Texas Eggs has this campaign to muddy the waters with Stoops so that the decision makers are like, Ross Bjork is like, this is not good. I got Billy Bob Thornton from Permian, Texas is calling me while he's at the oil rig telling me you can't hire Mark Stoops.
Nice.
And so then they finally hire a football guy and
they got it right.
And they got it right with Mike Elko. But I don't think the relationship between Stoops and the fan base has been the same since he was basically 75% in at Texas A&M.
Mm-hmm. It's like Glenn Mason at Georgia in 95.
It's brutal. It's brutal at Kentucky. They should not be this way.
Yeah.
But now they get to go and play their game furthest west, and good luck. I think Texas, after seeing this weekend or the bracket and people talking about their schedule and the fact that the only competitive team the only playoff type team that's been on their schedule that got blown out at home, Texas will try and make a statement this weekend.
Kentucky. Poor Kentucky.
All right, here is Random Mike. Good morning, Mike. Thanks for the phone call.
Hey, this I don't know if you caught the call yesterday to the Connor Happer show from Greg from Myrtle Beach. Did you happen to catch that?
I did not. You're going to have to give me the thumbnail here.
We know Greg.
From Myrtle Beach?
He's called into our show before.
Greg's called.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been taking calls from Greg for a long time.
Shout out, Greg.
Okay, you got to catch it. He was not a happy camper, and I'm really.
So what was he not happy about?
About Matt Rule.
Okay.
Is he a South Carolina fan or is he a Carolina Panther fan and a Husker fan?
I don't think he's a Carolina Panther fan, but he has come on the air and explained that he knows of things that happen with Carolina.
Okay. And it was similar to what Shanley's been hearing, but he had a lot of statistics about how Rule is done in big games and going back a number of years, and that we can do a lot better. But look, I totally agree. I couldn't have been happier listening to what our new offensive coordinator had to say. And I happened to read an article, a great article in Sports Illustrated about Bob Devaney and how he turned things around by John Underwood. And you know how big Sports Illustrated was for a number of years. And how did Devaney do it? Devaney was not a great X's and O's guy, but he was great at a lot of other things. And boy, he had a great staff, and a lot of them made people uncomfortable. And you know that. And when Mike Corrigan coached the running backs who were there before with the prior coach, and Jerry Murtaugh had some of these people as guests on his show, telling you exactly what was going on. And this one expression really made an impression on me. After dealing with Corrigan, the running back said, what was okay before wasn't okay anymore. And a similar thing happened, I heard from a player when Kevin Steele came. And remember how he upgraded the program? One of the linebackers said, what was okay before wasn't okay anymore. And that's what you're going to hear. What you're hearing, I'm sure, from a lot of players right now. And it was so refreshing to hear what he said. And it was things we have seen,
Okay, so
repeated.
So, Mike, refreshing, or did it make you angry?
Well, yeah, of course it makes you angry. And if you catch, like Greg from Myrtle Beach, that was an angry dude, and he just couldn't believe what he's had to deal with. And do you know how old he is? I'm just curious. He seemed like an older guy.
I do not know.
And there's so many great fans that are getting older, and to watch this when you know how great we've been, it's unbelievable. And our new coach, he couldn't believe what's happened in Nebraska. He knows how great we are, and that's the way it is around the country. And he's looking at the blocking of our receivers. He can't believe it. and he was blunt about it. And guess what? We both saw some of the best blocking we've seen from receivers, which should have been that way. Why wasn't it that way all along? Why can't these running backs, and I think one of them does see the holes, find the holes? I mean, this is unacceptable. And you can say the same thing, obviously, we talked about it, about special teams. Why is it this way? This is unacceptable. So, this could be one of the best things that happened. And maybe Raiola is another reason why he'll want to stay, because he said some really nice things about Raiola. But Raiola's really been messed up. So, I couldn't be happier.
He was brought in for Dillon. He was brought in for Rule, and he was brought in for Dillon. He wasn't brought in for Harburg. He wasn't brought in for Harburg. He was brought in for Dylan Raiola. You put 6 guys in the NFL. Nebraska needs, for this program to have the next quarterback, they need the current quarterback to go to the NFL. And not just to have a roster spot, but to play in the NFL. And
credit to our head coach for doing this. But I love, again, we saw a lot of candor yesterday. And he said, and he has high regard for Rule. And so many people had high regard for Devaney, who hired people different than him and knew more than him, smarter guys than me in certain areas.
Did you have...
This is what great leaders...
Mike, did you have more questions after Dana spoke yesterday, or your questions answered?
No, and this was just what we needed. And it was an act out of desperation. And remember what he said about what Rule said to him. I love it. I need you. I need your help. And you're going to have keys to the car. And he wants to be in control. And I think, I agree with you. I think this week will be a lot better than the first. And that makes a lot of sense, because he doesn't know the players and all these other things. Who's the young guy you think that he saw that he really
So
liked?
I think it's 2. I think it has to be somebody who has not played. Quinn Clark, who I think is an athletic freak. I can't wait to see him. Ken Clark's son.
Son of a legend.
Yes, the late Kenny Clark, who is one of the most underrated running backs in the history of Nebraska football, and one of the nicest, quietest guys I've ever met or interviewed. And his son is in a college weightlifting or strength and conditioning program, and you're seeing the result. I mean, he's going to end up on the Bruce Feldman freak list before he's done. I think it's either him, or I will tell you another guy that they really like, but showed up late and had to get up to spead physically. Mekhi Nelson. You remember him, Mike? He was a late addition to the roster in the middle of the summer at running back. And he hasn't. So if you went to the open practice in the first week, you probably grabbed your roster and wondered who that guy is that was running the football, because you're like, that's not Dowdell, that's not Emmett, that's not Ramir. Hell, that's not even Ives. He's not that tall. Mekhi Nelson is a guy they really like. So those are the 2 that I am thinking, because I can't believe that it's somebody that has played already this year that all of a sudden Dana saw running either scout team or on the number 2s that he went, oh, that's the guy. So those would be my 2 picks. But you know what? Think about if you're Wisconsin. You're like, wow, they're going to have a secret weapon, a guy we've never seen on tape before, all of a sudden pop into the game.
No, absolutely. Do you think we'll see more of Jalen Lloyd? I still can't figure out why he hasn't been used more.
I hope so. All he does this time of the year is get open.
Yep. And he happens to be one of our fastest guys.
He does.
I couldn't be happier about what we saw yesterday. Take care, buddy.
Mike, thanks for the phone call. When we come back, so part of what I want to get to, and then Mike just added to it about, if you look at Devaney's staff, is Dana Holgorsen a mix of Chip Kelly and Charlie McBride?
It's quite the combo.
That would be a hell of a combo if you put those together. I will tell you why that might be the case. That benefit the head coach and one side of the ball. We'll get to that when we come back. A little bit later, Jay Moore will pick his brain on what he saw against USC on both sides of the ball, because there is some discussion about defense that came up yesterday. While it was refreshing yesterday, and the kids they don't say keep it 100 anymore. I like to say just keeping it a buck. Have you ever heard that phrase before?
Not yet. And now that you said it, I'll start hearing it.
Just keeping it a buck. That's what Dana Holgorsen did yesterday. If you know, that phrase. But there is stuff that he said that either is encouraging or discouraging. He did both of those things. He made people uncomfortable yesterday. We're all like eating this up. Oh, this is great. Give it to him. Give it to him. But there was encouraging and discouraging stuff. But when guys are coaches and they have respect and they have cachet and they're not afraid to go there, that's a Charlie McBride and Chip Kelly. I'll explain when we come back. It's the Gary Sharp Show on 1620 The Zone. Hey, did anybody bring up, Jimmy, the fact that Shams got scooped on Inside the NBA airing on ESPN next year?
That weird.
He was not the person that broke it.
Yeah. And he's the new Woj over there.
He is. Shouldn't he? That's kind of a big deal for ESPN. ESPN has gone back to the superstar era where they are acquiring. Dang cold.
They're loading up.
They are, well, look at their top end talent. But they're going to have to, I know, like, whatever the pre and halftime and post that ESPN has for the NBA. I mean, there's a reason that they pursue the Inside the NBA. If your product was strong enough, they're not even thinking about that. And they let somebody else go and try and keep the Inside the NBA alive.
Yeah.
But they're bringing him over. I thought Shams would have been the guy that would have broke it over the weekend.
Like, here's
a big deal. It's a huge deal that ESPN's going to air Inside the NBA, and Inside the NBA stays alive.
Yeah. Still produced by Turner, just everything the same, or so they tell us.
They got to get Shaq on board. I guess he does not have a contract. I don't think that'll be that hard. But if one of them's not there, I don't think you can do the show.
Because
you have to
be the same.
You have to have the four that are there. But I thought Shams should have broke that story. Jay Moore and Brandon Vogel will join us a little bit later on the lineup, brought to you by the rooferees at John Higgins Weather Guard. So part of the conversation this morning, after just keeping it a buck, talked yesterday. I'm gonna pound that phrase
I love
into the
it.
ground.
I can't wait till I hear it from the kids.
By the way, Dana, stalker friend of mine who works in downtown Lincoln, ran into him the other day, and he was like, "I can't." He was so approachable. I'm like, "What do you think?" Like he was going to run away?
Yeah, he can stay in his room.
He goes, "I was a little bit stalkerish." He goes, "I saw him coming across the street, and so I patiently waited, and then engaged in a conversation." And I'm like, "Okay, was it more than just?" Coach, how you doing? Welcome to Nebraska. Anything like that? He goes, no. He was like, it was like 4 or 5 minutes. We just talked. And I said, yeah, he's anybody that has known him.
It's like Leach.
He's extremely approachable. Yeah. Like you shouldn't be afraid of him. They're like, oh, here he comes. I mean, he's not Bo.
Yeah.
He's not Bo running the streets of Lincoln where you got away from him.
Dana's kind of guy. So you dip the cinnamon roll in the chili or do you pour it on? Explain that to me. I don't eat much, but.
So part of the thing that we've talked about this morning, if his addition is, it's different, okay? He's different. I mean, you knew what you were getting. It helps that he's Dana Holgorsen because if it's Bob Stevenson, he can't do what he did yesterday because he doesn't have that cachet, doesn't have that respect. Mm-hmm. You have to Google who Bob Stevenson is. Hell, you might have to Google who Garrett McGuire is when he comes to recruit you if you're not from the state of Texas.
Yeah.
You might have to Google somebody else. But because he's Dana Holgorsen, that helps. But the part of Rule bringing in somebody with a fresh perspective and letting them just rip and say, hey, we need this fixed. I got to win some football games. We got to win some football games. You can help me win some football games. What am I seeing that what are you seeing that I'm not seeing? So again, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable, but good administrators hire people that take care of your weaknesses. And Rule clearly, offense is not his strength, and he's no sense of the word that has mentioned it, where he works more with the defense during the week, and we've seen that as the offense has gone into the tank of a defensive guy trying to talk about the offense. But think about the dynamic of you don't want yes men, okay? You do not, that's the worst thing. You don't want to be around somebody that always agrees with you. Okay, I think that'd be a miserable life. You don't want to always be fighting with somebody, but you want somebody that gives you a different perspective, and you can engage a conversation. You can build a conversation. So Shane writes in to the Equitable Bank inbox. He said, "Did we finally get a coach who didn't hire a yes man?" Some of the assistants at Nebraska have said we play off Rule's lead. Rule leads, and then we take that and we go with it. Now you hire a guy who maybe could be a wild card that again has a lot of coaching background, that he's different from you. Okay, you are intense. I think Rule is very intense. It probably doesn't always come out that way, but he grinds. He's a grinder. He's a builder. He's an intense guy who probably X's and O's are not his strength. X's and O's are not his strength. So you bring in somebody that takes care of your weaknesses. But there's also the other thing that can be a little bit different is working with somebody that has a completely different personality than you. And I use Charlie McBride. If you looked at a guy of his personality like Tom Osborne, you would say, man, Charlie McBride was the perfect guy to be a defensive coordinator. But Charlie, who was gruff, who told it like it was, and had great respect from the players that played for him because he was upfront and he was honest with them, and he created an atmosphere of competition.
He made you better.
But he was different. He was the yin and the yang. Osborne to McBride, two completely guys.
Good cop, bad cop.
Charlie and Tom aren't going to the same place after the game. Okay, they're not. But they found a way to work together because they blended together. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how I see this, is the head coach's personality and his OC are different. And somehow it may work because it's okay. I mean, look at it. We all have our kind of our style of who we want to date or to marry. But then when you step outside of the box and you're not a person that has ink, and all of a sudden Gary brings home somebody from Lincoln, Nebraska to Urbandale, Iowa to the parents to meet. And I've been dating her for three months, and she's got a tattoo arm sleeve and she's got a pierced nose. And my parents are like, what happened to the blondes, the Midwestern white blonde that you liked? Like, no, you gotta shake it up a little bit. Makes me a better person.
She goes 4 and 5 wide. We can't just be halfback dive all the time.
Now, some might say that she was didn't work out. She moved away. It lasted about another month after she met the parents. But look at this. McBride was different from T.O. and it worked. Dana is definitely different than Rule. I think they're more similar, but outwardly, I don't even know if that's a word. They're different. So Nebraska may have inherited a guy off the streets that gives you the Charlie McBride factor that was so beneficial to that side of the ball. And then also, he might be the next Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly didn't want to put up with all that head coaching BS. He didn't want that. He just wants to call ball. And what's he doing at Ohio State? He's calling ball, and he's having the best time of his life. Dana's been a head coach before. Hey, Houston's paying him a lot of money not to be a head coach. He can go to Nebraska and he can hang out and call ball. Okay? And everybody's like, man, that was a great press conference. You are. He's like, I'm just keeping it a buck. That's what I do. But another thing of this, and Clint brings this up, and I agree with him. It's just like our parents. We all had a bad cop, good cop, right? Is Matt Rule too good of a cop? That he needed somebody in this program to be the bad cop, to keep people on their toes, to keep people on edge, to keep people competing. He may have found that guy on the offensive side of the ball. Good cop, bad cop. We all had that with parents. You know, we always, when you wanted something to be approved, you went to one parent, but then the other parent was like, I don't know. Good cop, bad cop. Nebraska may have a buddy cop film being filmed in Lincoln right now with Matt Rule and Dana Holgorsen, who the hell ever thought we'd be in this point? All right, we got to take a break. And hopefully my voice will not go bye-bye. I apologize. I have a bad cold that I've had since I got back from Las Vegas. Coming up, Jay Moore, Brandon Vogel. We'll do that around the corner on 1620 The Zone. All right, as we hit the third hour this morning, I would love for everybody to wake up with us at 6 and be here all 4 hours with us. We get you out of bed.
A pot of coffee.
We get you to work. But if you were not with us at the beginning of the show has a different name today. It is the Gary Sharp Show. Just a member of our family, Nick Hanley, is no longer with us on 1620 The Zone. We were informed yesterday that NRG Media has decided to go in a different direction with the morning show, and Nick, his contract was not renewed, which is a loss for all of us, all of you listeners of 1620 The Zone that have gotten to know Nick, and you knew Nick from his time across town and now here at The Zone for 2 years. He's been a friend of mine for nearly 20 years, and lucky enough to do a show with him on a regular basis, to have conversations on and off the air, and continue our friendship and get to know more about Nick, because he helped me grow. Again, Nick's one of the good ones in the industry. You can't say that about a lot of people, but you treat people the right way and you'll get taken care of. And I truly believe that a good family man who's got a wonderful family, Nick will end up on his feet. We're rooting for him to be back in the booth at Haymarket Park, which is something he would be able to do now. But
he missed so bad.
Talked to Nick yesterday, and I just wanted to relay his feelings towards all of our listeners. I did not get a chance to say goodbye, but he had a heartfelt message that he posted on X yesterday that I encourage everyone to read, because that is true Nick Hanley, all the Nick Hanley that we know. For what happens with the future of 6 to 10 in the morning, that is to be determined. The only thing that I've requested is that I do not want the name of this show to be the Gary Sharp Show. I am
You even make up a name.
I'm under the understanding that it will be a temporary name, but I'm sure there will be a plan moving forward. We're just not sure of what that is right now. But I can assure you this, and I know some people are very upset that have reached out to me, that are in our stream, our email, our tweets. We have a standard here at 1620 The Zone as we celebrate 25 years of this station being the sports station where you turn for, hey, what are the guys on air? What's their reaction? What are they talking about? What breaking news are they going to tell us about? What stupid stuff are they going to talk about that we're going to be angered by or we're going to laugh about? We have a standard here, and we will continue to uphold that standard, because you, the listener, the viewer, are the most important people. You are our clients, and we could not do what we do without you. So we have a standard, and so that standard will be upheld between 6 and 10. I just don't have information for y'all on what that is going to look like. What is that going to sound like? We do have in our corporate office and right here people that have a keen interest in 1620 as The Zone, continuing that standard. So it is our hope from everybody that is part of the station, along with you, that we will continue to do that, and something will happen sooner than later, because I'm about to go out of town for basketball. No, I'm just kidding. So if you've not heard the news, that is the news. That is why Nick is not here. Someone said, is Nick under the weather today? Nick gets to sleep in today. But he is he's a friend. I'm glad that we got to do shows together. We got to do a show together, and I wouldn't hesitate sharing a mic with him. But when we know what's happening with 6 to 10 on 1620 The Zone, because we owe it to you, y'all will be the first to know.
Yeah.
And just
There'll be red smoke coming from our building.
There will be something. There will be something that will be coming. But just know that there are people that understand how important 1620 is, that are decision makers, and they will make the right decision on what we're going to do and what that means for Jimmy and myself, which means that we're going to talk to Jay Moore and Brandon Vogel here in the next hour. So let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll reset it. I just wanted to get everybody up to speed. So if you were tuning in and you were wondering what's a little bit different about the show, that's where we are at on this Wednesday morning, the 20th of November on 1620 The Zone.
It's the edited version, I promise. It's in our system.
This is one of those are one of the rap songs that you immediately have like a good vibe to.
Yep. Takes me back.
Welcome back in. The Gary Sharp Show. Jimmy here as well. Jay Moore will join us at the top of the hour. Brandon Vogel from counterread.com. I got something brought up by an earlier caller about Garrett McGuire that I want to touch on. If Indiana finishes 11-1 and gets left out of the playoff, what's the reaction?
If Indiana doesn't get in.
So, biggest game in the history of Indiana football.
Absolutely.
It's great that games matter. They're going to play on the field. You know what? They can't control their Big Ten schedule. They just play their games. You know what? They're dominating. Okay, they beat Nebraska 56-7. Outside of Michigan, they have hammered everybody.
Yeah.
Now, I still wonder about Indiana's offense against Ohio State's defense, but Ohio State's injury situation on the offensive line could benefit Indiana's defense. Game's 11.5. But you see what happened last night where Indiana is situated. Could the committee justify dropping Indiana 8 spots if they lose, because they have Ohio State and they have Purdue left? So if they lose, they're not going to be in the Big Ten championship game.
Their only loss is to Ohio State.
11-1. Because what you're getting is the Indiana against the 5th SEC team. I mean, it's wild. We did this so we'd have variety, that we could have this one magical season of a team that pops onto the radar and they have that great season. And it's like, you know what? Haven't seen you in a while. I think the college football fan has a tough time embracing the year by year aspect of the new college football with the portal and how things can change quickly, that we might get new blood. That's why we expanded to 12 to maybe get some new teams that haven't been in the 4. And you get Indiana and people are like crapping all over Indiana. I love it. You know, it's not only from the Big Ten side, but it's somebody different. Indiana may not be back in the playoff race for a long time, but you know what? They get the 1 year. And why can't
take a shot at it?
Yeah, why can't we embrace that? This is cool. This is the year they're having that kind of year. In a sport where we get the same teams over and over and over and over again, we got a couple of new teams. We should embrace them.
Yeah, it's what you wanted, right?
But you heard, if you watched the show, you heard the argument. It's the 5th SEC team. You know, all the abundance of 2-loss teams are being pitted against Indiana. Okay, now because the strength of schedule is being hammered, they can't do anything about the Big Ten schedule. But when they play the schedule, are they not doing work?
Yeah.
But the reaction, if Indiana at 11-1, and you can do the math, they either get boat raced or they lose by, they don't lose by 11.5, which they're an underdog. What's the reaction if an 11-1 Indiana gets left out of the field of 12?
Yeah. Tells you everything you need to know about the process. Oh yeah, we're gonna expand the playoffs so that we can get teams more blue bloods in. Because if their jersey says Texas or it's a Michigan helmet on them, are we having the same conversation? No. Same as it's always been. Same with the Bowl Coalition. Same with the BCS, and same with the previous edition of the playoff.
I mean, it's variety.
Yeah.
I don't know why we don't embrace it. But just because it's not a traditional team that's having a good year, it's somebody different, why fight it? That's a great thing about college football. Okay? We don't need always the Alabamas and the Georgias and the Ohio States and the Michigans hanging out. We expanded to 12 so we'd get teams like Indiana, like Boise State. Instead of fighting it, why not go, this is great for the sport? Because you know what? We roll around to 2025. Who's going to be the Indiana of this year?
Look at that.
But
if you kick them out, then that's going to send an entirely wrong message.
But you see, the beauty of college football is that everything is an argument, and we're very passionate, and we're very regionalized, is Indiana, I said this yesterday on the show, Indiana's going to get taken through the ringer. Okay? The rhetoric will come out that Indiana is not good, and they're going to get exposed this weekend. Well, you know what? The great thing is games matter. You play those games, and it's either going to be a truth or a lie. And then the whole thing will be reset coming on Tuesday. But just the pushback on Indiana, embrace it. It's somebody different that is having a great year. And you know what? That could be you next year. The next team can come along because the field is expanded and they're having this great season and they're going to get rewarded by a spot in the playoff. Hey, Indiana in the playoff would be a great thing. Bloomington, Indiana,
Yeah.
for a playoff game.
Oh, it'd be rocking. It's a dream come true. It only happens in the video game. Now it's happening in real life.
They couldn't do. They can't do anything about their Big Ten schedule.
America would rally
Yeah.
behind Indiana.
Maybe not fully because of Cignetti, but you would rally behind them because, man, they're a good football team.
They're new.
Yeah.
It's someone different.
So I know that you're not supposed to lose your mind over the rankings because you know what, they're going to reset next Tuesday and we still have a couple of more of these. But just why fight Indiana? Hey, if they get blown out this weekend, we know we have all of our questions answered. But they haven't played that game yet. And up until then, they've done exactly what's been asked of them. And then they'll find out this weekend against Ohio State. Because if you want to be in the hypotheticals, what if Indiana wins? I think they're the number one team in the country. I think Indiana is the number one team in the country. They would have a great case. I don't have a vote. I'd have to talk to Amy Just. Maybe she could put Indiana number one. They would have a case to be the number one team in the country. Unbeaten. And they just went to Ohio State and won as an 11.5-point underdog. When all Oregon has done on a bye week is qualify for the Big Ten championship, and they didn't even know that until Tuesday.
Yeah.
Late on a Tuesday, they got released. Dumb look for the Big Ten. Bring back divisions, please.
Yeah.
All right, Jay Moore, Brandon Vogel still to come. Part of the discussion of yesterday and the frankness of Nebraska's new offensive coordinator is, again, he said out loud what we've either said on the radio or other people have said that is holding Nebraska back. Whether it be players, got to make some plays, whether it be situations where players are put in that they're not able to make those plays. But the one that the bells went ding, 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 ding was about wide receivers blocking. We've been beating that drum really since even the UTEP game. We overlooked it against UTEP, overlooked it against Colorado. Aaron Murray put out a video, and then we went, well, let me take another closer look at that. And the next thing you know, whoa, he's right. Nebraska's going to be in trouble. They don't block on the edge. And then it got exposed when you're trying to find any way to move the ball and score points, and you're getting out to the edge, and guys are, the want to is not there, and they basically are turnstile. So you have a new guy come in, and he says, you got to do your job. The no block, no rock is not just a podcast. It's a saying that has been used around here for a while, but it's never backed up. Okay, if you don't block, you're not going to get the rock. Come on, man. What's that do for the rest of the wide receiver room when a guy doesn't block and then he gets the ball? But I'm out there busting my ass and I'm like the 7th or 8th wide receiver and I'm blocking and I'm just mowing guys down and I don't even get to play. And when I play, I don't even get the ball. I mean, what are we doing? It just so calls that out. And then the wide receivers, not over the top, and the offense was not over the top. You can't make a case that the offense was so much better when they only score 10 points and they just have over 300 yards. They looked like a purpose and a zone better, and you could see subtle things. I think you'll see an expanded variety coming up against Wisconsin. But it brings into the discussion about if Dana Holgorsen is here next year, what does his offensive staff look like? Who is in the safe space? Who is on the outside that are on the LinkedIn right now? And they've already been kind of intimated, hey, when the season's over, we are going to make a change. And I want to give you a heads up, so that you are prepared that it's professional courtesy. We're not going to retain you, but you can start now looking for a job while you do what you do here. I mean, wide receiver running back got called out by the new offensive coordinator, who, if he stays next year, has full control over what he does with that staff, whether you've got 1 year on your contract, whether you got a buyout, whatever. You don't bring in Dana Holgorsen to say, you know what, can you work with this guy? No. Offensive guys, I've learned this, offensive guys more than defensive guys need to work with people they're familiar with. There has to be a connection. Like defensive guys, you can bring people from all over and kind of, Nebraska brought a defensive coordinator in that didn't have connections with certain guys on the defense, but they worked together. It seems like the offense, they all got to kind of know each other because everything's got to be in sync. But here's the problem with Garrett McGuire. And he can't overcome the age thing. They put him in a situation where last year he had a wide receiver room that was top heavy and bottom heavy. So some older guys and some younger guys, and nobody really in the middle. And then you encounter injuries, and you encounter guys aren't running the routes properly. They're lazy. They're not doing things that you would hope is being taught. Young guys play at the end of the year, and a couple of young guys hurt you because they don't run the right route and they're in the wrong spot, or the ball is going to where it's supposed to go because you're supposed to be there and you're not there. So route running, that's part of your craft. I mean, before you get the ball, you got to run the route correctly. And if you're lazy running the route, it gets exposed because everything's on timing. Mm-hmm. So that was a problem last year. And then I thought in the offseason, Matt Rule looked at Garrett McGuire, and his connection to his dad, Joey, who's the head coach at Texas Tech, and said, we're going to help you, okay? We're going to go out and get 2 dudes. So you're going to have those 2 dudes. You develop the other guys that are in that room because you still have a relatively young room, and look at all the talent we brought in. Mm-hmm. I mean, Nebraska brought some dudes in at wide receiver. Last year, one-off, you were a young guy. They probably thought they could run you over. I didn't do a good job of sticking up for you and saying, that's not how it works here. So this year, you have your 2 top-end guys who have not performed like 2 top-end guys should be. Like should be wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. And then there's the blocking part of it, and there's not the precise route running. And then there's some limitations about they may not be everything that you spent money on. But then you still have a young room. But is that room not listening to the young wide receiver coach? But it takes a guy who he can do this because his name is Dana and people know him. He can call you out, and all of a sudden that changes your performance. What kind of a look is that for your wide receiver coach? Was he letting it happen during practice? And so in games? Or was he also saying that, but it fell on deaf ears?
Yeah.
Because he's not Dana Holgorsen.
Which is a problem in itself.
Now, what is curious about, like, and I think it's important for the whole operation that Holgorsen is here for the duration of Dylan Raiola's career. So that would be minimum of 2 after this year. And again, I do believe that he wants to be in ball, but I don't think he wants the head coach crap.
Right.
And
which is becoming more common.
This is an ideal place. Nebraska very rarely has had like a star coordinator. I mean, Charlie McBride was a star coordinator, but he became a star coordinator. But the first time that Nebraska has a guy that, they have the Chip Kelly of Nebraska, a name who everybody knows that is calling plays, not running a program.
That knows offense.
But, the Oklahoma OC job will be the number 1 OC job out there in the offseason. I don't know what Venables has a connection to Dana Holgorsen, but there'll be a lot of money attached. Dana has money. I don't think he needs an influx, but if he's the full-time guy, I mean, we're talking 1.4, 1.5. Now he's getting paid by Houston. But the Oklahoma OC job will be out there, and that will be the top job for people to come after, that they will pursue people. And I mean, if you think about it, Dana, it's in the SEC, not the Big 12, but Oklahoma, what they do at Oklahoma. But I think if you bring him here, there's a commitment. But so let's say he's here next year, which I do believe. What do you think his offensive staff would look like?
Because naturally there would be changes. That's how this works.
Oh, there will be changes. But part of the changes, whether it be wide receiver, running back, moving a quarterback coach to another position, whatever you decide to do, you'll have to replace a tight end coach. Keep this in mind, because this will be one of the top stories of the offseason is there will be changes on the staff and then who is brought in. Because I'm sure Dana's a high-level thinker, and he's going to want to work with guys that are similar to his thinking that maybe he's worked with before. But I've also heard him say this, and this would be something that maybe a Garrett McGuire benefits from. Dana has said before, he did a coaching, there's a YouTube video that I watched last week. He went into depth about putting together an offensive staff that he likes his wide receiver coaches and his quarterback coaches to be a little bit younger because Dana's a teacher. And those are two areas in which he feels like he has expertise that younger coaches, not less experienced, but younger coaches, he feels like they're ideal for those two spots because he can teach them. So,
And Dana knows Joey well.
he does, but he ain't here to mess around.
Yeah.
I mean,
And everybody that knows Dana knows that's Dana.
I mean, we think creating competition is just for players in this on the offensive side in this little 3-game run.
Yeah.
What about coaches?
Mm-hmm.
What about coaches? I mean, I think if it came down to Garrett McGuire and the connection to the McGuire family compared to what Dana Holgorsen said about you about can you coach at this level? I'm thinking Dana Holgersen's viewpoint has his voice has a stronger impact.
What I tell you earlier, he sits down with Rule. All right, you want me to be honest? And those are kind of the conversations they have in general. So if you brought him in, you're bringing the whole experience. All right, I brought you in for a reason. Tell me.
I also think like if he looked at Nebraska's offensive staff and said, those guys are good.
Yeah, that too.
He probably would not be as upfront as he was, where you got to go to the running back coach at halftime on Saturday at USC and say, hey, your running back's got to do this. You would not have superseded the position coach and wide receivers and said, hey, you guys aren't blocking with a crap. Now, I imagine there's the good cop, bad cop of Rule knows that, and he probably already said, hey, Dana, you got to get what can you do to get our wide receivers to block better? Mm-hmm. Maybe you don't do that if you're like, okay, those guys are doing a good job. I'm just going to observe. Mm-hmm. But he came in and
you asked me to help.
Just keeping it a buck is what exactly he did. All right, take a quick break. We will come back. Some good emails and some tweets on this discussion about Indiana as well. Go Hoosiers.
Yeah.
We are for the Hoosiers. It makes Nebraska's RPI look better as long as Indiana keeps winning. Might help when you get to March. It's the Gary Sharp Show with Jimmy at 1620 The Zone.
Rivalry Day is Friday, November 22nd. I guess just in general, Creighton takes on in-state rival Nebraska men's and women's basketball. Coverage starts in the morning with us through the Happer Show, women's pregame 3:45. Between games, there'll be a postgame pregame show. Men's game at 7. All right here on the Zone. And the 25K four-quarter pick'em has officially come to an end. Congratulations to our friend Week 10 winner, John Walls, who won $2,500. Thank you to everyone for listening and playing. And shout out John Bishop. He's the winner. I hope he flexed yesterday when they told him that. I hope he just rubbed it in on everyone, especially the producer that blew a first-place lead. Poor Nick Grimm goes down with the California Angels in 1995 for blowing a big lead and losing the whole thing. We'll play again next year.
We never did come up with punishment. Like everybody has fantasy football. If you finish last, what your punishment is.
We had great ideas. They shot everything down.
Yeah, the afternoon show just kind of stands in the way of progress.
Yeah.
That's the word on the street, is that we want to do a lot of crazy things, and they're like,
no. We send Nick Grimm to L.A.? No.
We don't do crazy things on the afternoon show. We just stick by the book. We just do things as normal.
Stick to sports.
Couple of emails here in the Equitable Bank inbox. This is from Eric about Dana Holgorsen, who just keeping it a buck yesterday. That was the theme of his media. What was he, 16 minutes? Hey, the other aspect of something he said yesterday, because he is a lightning rod, even though the offensive line, I mean, outside of, and again, there's just you ask a good question, you're going to get, and somebody that's not afraid to go there is going to give you a good answer, is, Dana Holgorsen went into depth about some of the mistakes on the offensive line. I mean, he mentioned Ben Scott. We've not, it's not fair to compare him at a podium compared to Satterfield because they're completely different personalities, and there's a comfort level, and there's also an experience level. But you never got like in-depth stuff. I mean, he's just throwing meat to the Nebraska fan that loves ball. Okay, Dana loves ball. The Nebraska fan loves ball. They want to learn ball. They think they know way too much about ball, including all of us radio hosts.
Handshake meme.
But Dana was like giving it to you. But did people find it curious in this discussion about, well, what's the future going to look like on the offensive side? I mean, I think they find a spot for Mosey. Running backs, wide receivers, where would he fit? Matt Rule gets here, and he retains Donovan Raiola. We had a whole 4-hour show, Jimmy. Were you here?
Yeah, I was here.
You were here already?
I remember that. The day we spent 2 hours on fullbacks. Yeah.
Yes.
Love this place.
Then Rule explained why. And as the offensive line has evolved, and the offensive line is not bad. It's not great. I think our standards are super high for an offensive line, but it's an offensive line that hasn't, I think it's more the guys behind him than what they're trying to do. And they were put in a much better position on Saturday, and you saw the result. I mean, there were plays on Saturday from the offensive line that were blocked that need to be a touchdown. Nebraska's first 8 carries of the second half went for an average of 8 yards. When play is blocked,
it takes 10 to get
when
a
play
first
is
down.
blocked for a touchdown, that running back's got to hit his head on the goalpost. But did you find it interesting because he's a lightning rod, and then you're like, he got his nephew playing quarterback. Is Dana Holgorsen spoke highly of Donovan Raiola,
which goes back to the last segment and the point you were making. One of them.
When Rule says it, do you go, you have ulterior motives? When Dana Holgorsen says something positive about the offensive line coach, what's your reaction?
Is it the same?
Or
Do you take a step back
because
it's
he's a guy that knows ball and can see things that we don't see, sees things with the offensive line, and goes, I got you. I know what you're working with. I got you. I can see what you're trying to work with. Just a little interesting dynamic. But Eric writes in, the best thing Dana can come in here and do is utilize the players and talent the correct way. To me, the way it sounds is he is a mini Rule. What he says goes, and if you don't believe him, try him. How do we get Mickey Joseph back as wide receiver coach? Mickey's coaching at Grambling.
Yeah.
He's head coach at Grambling. And Mickey Joseph's not coming back to Nebraska. Dude knew how to recruit and could set a standard for high level of play. When he was here, I felt he had the best wide receiver room we've seen in a while.
Trey Palmer will do that to you.
He had you, well, now as Nebraska finishes up with Wisconsin and Iowa, when you go back to the game 2 years ago, whether it be here or the game in Iowa City, you see what it's like to have a guy like Trey Palmer. But the thing about Mickey, because he said this, Mickey would jump on with us periodically before we got our hand slapped for having him on a non-network show. He did hold a standard. So he held a standard that if you wanted to reach this standard, you could get to the NFL. But there's also the part, and I'm gonna lean on this a little bit more, is you did have to Google Mickey Joseph. Like, you knew that who he worked with at LSU. So immediately you were like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. You don't have to Google Dana Holgorsen. You know who he is. And I'm not saying you immediately have respect for him, but you're like, okay, he's put 6 quarterbacks in the NFL. He's got this offense that is scoring 40-plus points. Okay. And then whatever words he says are resonating with you because you know exactly who he is and what his resume is. Compared to maybe a coach that is a little bit younger that you don't know much about. And then when things get tight and emotions get high, they're saying stuff to you and you've completely zoned them out. You know, I think when the season is over, there's a lot about this season that was said leading up to it that has not matched, and we figure out why. You know, I think it's an average football team that plays in Lincoln. I was 7-5 guy. I said I would love to be wrong, but there's the aspect of dealing with success.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't crossed over the bridge yet.
I said 8-4 is very wrong.
Won't we need to have like a little bit of an in-depth discussion to answer the why and then to give the how you don't do this again on things that have plagued Nebraska this season that don't match what you thought or what was said by a coach that you at least paused and said, wow, that isn't coaching BS in the offseason. I actually believe that. They wouldn't say that if it wasn't true. Rule wouldn't stand up in Indianapolis and say what he did if he didn't think his team was going to do this, this, and this. I think he thought his team was going to be better at wide receivers. But defensive backs, there is a disconnect between the defense and the defensive backs that was kind of alluded to yesterday. And it's not like there's a bunch of young guys back there, but hell, the young guys should be playing in the defensive backfield. Mm-hmm. I mean, give me a Prude, give me a more Sanders, or any Sanders, give me Benning, give me the young Buford. I mean, the young bucks that are back there, hell, Donovan Jones. I mean, because it's the veteran guys that have a disconnect. So that's a dive of, okay, brand new coach that came in. They had a former coach where, I mean, some of those guys didn't have to, and they were being recruited by Evan Cooper. So they knew him. They already had a relationship. Now I got a new guy coming in, and you didn't have to Google John Butler. You knew he was coming from the NFL. But what's the disconnect there? I mean, this is I hope the month experiment, or not experiment, but the month edition of Dana Holgorsen to kind of tell you, Matt, this is what's good with your program. This is not what's right, but this is what we can fix. They do a whole deep, we can't let this happen again. And why is the defensive backs going rogue? Why are they doing things that don't match the defensive call? And then Tony White is he's standing up there going, I got to do a better job of getting those guys to understand what their call is. And you're like, wait a minute, that shouldn't be happening. Those guys aren't like they just walked off the street and they're only a couple of games into their career. But I think having a position coach, again, you can't have an abundance of developmental staff guys. You have to have some guys that have been around ball, that know ball, and that they are known. And maybe you don't know him, but man, I went to high school with a dude that's playing at LSU. I'm going to call LSU. I'm going to say, hey, tell me about this Mickey Joseph guy. I know he coached all these great wide receivers there and he recruited them, but tell me about the guy. And he goes, oh my God, how lucky are you? Man, if you do the right thing and if you say your prayers and eat your meals right and get good sleep, man, Mickey's going to get you to the show. And you're like, I'm set.
Yep.
I'll listen to anything Mickey's got to say. I mean, he told wide receivers, basically get your in gear or you're not going to play. And guys were, I don't know, at the extreme of their skill set and what they're able to do, they were better in that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
But how come it took an outsider to get that across to older guys? What's the disconnect there? All right. Jay Moore, maybe he'll have an answer for that question. And Brandon Vogel, all to come in the last hour of the Gary Sharp Show on 1620 The Zone. All right, Gary Sharp Show on 1620 The Zone. Thanks to all of our people on X, on stream, everywhere that is with us this morning. Thank you very much to all of you. Jay Moore coming up in the next segment. I was thinking about this because I think Deion Sanders will not squash the Dallas Cowboys stuff. He's letting Michael Irvin run with it. Usually if you wanted to, say, hey, I'm going to say I got the kickstand down in Boulder. Just stop, Michael. But you want to keep your name out there and you want to make it a possibility and maybe make some people sweat or talk it into existence. Dallas, if your beloved Dallas Cowboys and they want a real football coach and they want to win, your first call is to
Bill Belichick.
Hmm.
But I'm being and I don't even know who I am anymore. I'm open to the Deion idea. What's wrong with me? That sounds completely different than everything I've said on this show over the past couple of years. But at this point, how much worse can it get? And I'm the one who said Buddy Bell once told me, never say it can't get much worse. I know that. But the Cowboys at this point, it's already a circus, so just go all in. What if it works? Deion, Shador.
See, nobody is going to.
I'll say something on Saturday.
Until the Cowboy job is filled, until the Vegas job is filled, this is going to be a story.
Yep.
Because remember, he has never gone without coaching his kids. His kids will be gone from Boulder. Mm-hmm. Now, I will say that he is recruiting like a guy that is not leaving, but we know how that is.
Yeah.
I mean, look at promises are made, promises are broken by coaches. So until those two particular jobs are filled, you're going to go, Deion's got to be a candidate. But I see what he's doing. He's playing both sides. He'll say, I'm here in Boulder, I'm staying, because he's got to recruit. Because what happens if things don't work out and he's going to stay in Boulder? I mean, you got to be able to transition from your son at quarterback to somebody that is at least worthwhile. And Julian Lewis could be his guy as a 5-star. But until those two jobs are filled, everybody's going to speculate. But isn't it interesting that he won't say his guy say, Michael, stop. Don't say it anymore. I know what you're out there saying, and you've said, I'm only going to go to the Cowboys if they draft my son. You got to stop. You got to stop. I'm in Colorado. You're hurting my cause. I'm here. I'm in college. I love it here. I, from afar, will watch Shador play and Travis play. I don't need to be coaching them. But he's not. And then he has to answer it every week. And so I think he enjoys that kind of stuff. If you're at Colorado, I mean, you're thinking, okay, do I at least have to have like that sheet in the top part of my desk to go, okay, if at the last second we lose our coach, this is the guy I got. And good luck to that person that would have to make the transition from the Deion Sanders at Colorado to whatever your Colorado looked like. Mm-hmm. But your first call would be to Belichick?
Yeah, Belichick and Deion are two people.
What about Mike Vrabel?
Oh, I did see his name being popped up for the Bears the other day.
He might be more ideal for the Bears just because he's a tough guy.
Yeah.
Midwest guy.
They need that kind of guy. But Belichick and Deion won't, how do you say, kowtow to Jerry? They're not going. They're going to, because we had some on the stream. Nothing will change. No one would go there as long as Jerry's alive. Fair, but those two also, much like when Parcells was hired, they'll say, "Look, we'll come, but here are the rules."
There's also the part of, if you are in Boulder, aren't you the GM and the owner? Like, isn't that what Deion is? Deion runs the whole show.
Yeah.
Like in Dallas, he would be the show, but there'd be another guy that would be the show as well. You have to share the spotlight. In Boulder, he's everything. He's all encompassing. Mm-hmm. He is the spotlight.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that would, I would even, I think Vegas would be a place that would be more appealing than Dallas for him.
What about the Giants? The Giants could draft Shador. They're on their way down. We'll get to see that pillow fight next week.
My buddy Richie would lose his mind.
Oh, I bet.
He wants his son, but he doesn't want his dad.
Yeah. With Belichick, different story.
Here is Mike before we talk to Jay Moore. Good morning, Mike.
Hey, good morning, Gary. How are you?
Good. How are you, sir?
Good. I'm all right. Hey, I was just wondering about, we talked all day about Dana and the offense and things that's not getting done. And I was just wondering about. You think anything is going to get done defensively at all? I mean, I don't think Tony's got the big name for the call out for the head coaching job yet. Like he did last year and this and that. And I'm not saying to fire him either. I'm just saying, do you think there'll be any defensive changes on that side of the ball at all?
I don't think so unless somebody is hired away.
Okay.
All
right.
I think they have to find a way in the offseason. And he showed up in July. They have to find a way to have Tony White and John Butler on the same page. Thinking the same thing.
Someone stop the run.
Well, another thing that I think they need to do, Mike, and I think this is a rule thing. I'd like to hear more about why they decided this year to change the type of defense they're playing. Because they're playing more what Rule wanted than what they played last year. Now, next year, the defense I think the defense will be faster. They'll be a little bit younger, but I think they'll be faster. But I wonder what kind of defense they'll play because 2 years, Mike, they played two really kind of different defenses where last year they were more attacking. This year, I think with the premise that they thought their defensive backfield was going to be this lockdown unit, they decided to play the kind of defense they're playing this year, and it's come back to bite them. And I also wonder if it's come back to hurt them during practice because the way they play defense with the defensive backs and dropping and their quarter coverage, if that also has an impact on the wide receivers when they go good on good.
Right. Well, Robinson's been stud. I don't know. Do you think Nash losing any weight took away from anything, or just the double team, just what he's being asked to do, taking away from some of his stats? Or it just seems like in the Big Ten, man, I get nervous about that 3-3-5 thing, not being able to stop the run more than anything.
Well, that's been an issue. Last year in November, it's been an issue of late. And then part of it though is in-game adjustment. When you see what USC is doing, like they did on Saturday with stuff off the counter, and they were picking you apart because they were recognizing where your weaknesses were. Nebraska defensively has got to get better in-game adjustments, realizing it, relaying it, and then doing it on the field, because there are times here in this 4-game losing streak that I thought the offensive coordinator on the other side is realizing what Nebraska is showing, and Nebraska's not changing, and he's just picking that apart, and they'll continue to do it. Yeah, and they'll continue to do that until Nebraska adjusts. I don't know. This will be a good deep dive in the offseason on the defense on what they want to do, but they'll be faster next year. So what do they decide to go with in terms of, will they go back to an attacking defense?
All right. Can we say anything about NRG and Mondays or what happened or anything, or no?
Feel free to.
Yeah. All right, here we go. I've been on this for a long time, man. Kevin Kugler and Severe and Schick and Nick and Sharp and Benning and and just been there for a long time. So I think that it's BS that if they didn't renew his contract, fine, but at least give him, hey, he's leaving in a week or 2 weeks or whatever. So at least gives us who try to get a chance to get to know you guys, or think we know you guys a little bit, inside to us. Like I know, I talked to you, my son, I told my son, I said, he plays 8-man football, but he's too big to be a quarterback and he wants to be quarterback. Well, now he's a starting quarterback for 8-man football, and just like you said he was going to do. And Michael Severe, I owe Michael Severe my vacations because I go to Venice, Louisiana twice a year now to go fishing because Severe gave it to me. I mean, obviously we're not buddies and best friends and all that, and I'm too old for X or Twitter and all that kind of crap. So I just thought I'd tell you, if Sharp wants a part of on his name on morning shows, you guys are the bus drivers. You drive the bus. That's why we're here. The other shores, I'm not taking nothing away from them, but people listen to the morning show, and then we stay for the other shows. So they better, if Sharp wants it, Sharp better have a place in the morning, and they better keep it local. They'll lose a ton of people because we can listen to Fox or ESPN garbage anytime we want to, anywhere we want. So there you go. That's all I got.
Mike, I appreciate it. You know, we've been friends for a long time. 1620 will remain local in the morning.
Yep.
Yep. And I will pass
Good.
along your sentiments
Good.
to Nick. And thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. You bet.
Yep.
You bet.
All right. Shifting gears here. That's we bring in Jay Moore. Good morning.
Morning, guys.
Sorry about that.
I feel like, that's a little bit of a different segue there.
Yeah. I see it's an arms day for you for people that are watching on 1620 that's on TV.
Well, yeah, wasn't not trying to, it just happened that way, I guess.
Okay.
I'll move here so it doesn't look like I'm trying to show off.
How should we? So Dana Holgorsen is he is who he is. There was a lot of Mike Leach, like stuff he values, whether it be just the minute details is what Mike Leach was so good at. And so that kind of like I was like, that's Mike Leach up there talking yesterday. How do we process? There's some of the stuff he said, Jay, that we were like, yeah, you're right. And then there's stuff that he was saying is like, whoa, I can't believe that was going on, and it took a guy off the streets to fix that.
Mm-hmm.
How did you filter through what he was saying yesterday about things that he's recognized in a short amount of time?
Yeah, I think whether it's myself, yourself, or whoever it is, I kind of had the same thoughts. I love the black and white. That's how I operate. I hate gray area. I think as a coach coming in, you got to work in that black and white. You got to be clear. It's this way. There's no gray area. It has to be this way. If not, we're changing. We're moving on, doing something different. So I love that aspect of it. Got to have it, and especially in football. And I think with young men in today's world, I think in general, right? I think you got to operate in the black and white.
Mm-hmm.
So I do appreciate that. But the other part of me is, and I think this is. You have guys come in, whether you mentioned, we found a guy, on the practice field that's going to contribute on Saturday, or why is Janarian Bonner getting utilized more? And you've seen him at times utilized, in the red zone with some of those run plays they use with him. But I mean, the guy is kind of a Swiss Army knife, and Rule said it, they use him in special teams. But he's a guy that you can use in the short to intermediate pass game, and he gets upfield. He's athletic. He has a little more twitch than the rest of the tight end groups, so he can provide you some explosiveness without having to take a bunch of risk, throwing the ball downfield. So I love that. But yeah, I think just having Dana in here it's a fresh thing, a fresh mindset, and this is what. I've been out of the game for a while, and I appreciate coaches. Coaches, you're there to coach. You're there to, and it's different in college and the NFL too. I mean, in the NFL, you're there to coach. You're there to get you better. If it doesn't work, they'll find someone different. College is different because you develop relationships through recruiting. You develop relationships with mom and dad. You promise you're going to take care of their son. You're going to do all these good things. So there's more of a parenting aspect that goes on, but sometimes that creeps into the coaching game where you're afraid to potentially hurt feelings. You don't want a kid to transfer. You don't want kids, they're not happy. They're, there's obviously the game's changed in college where kids have easier access to move on. But I think Rule in general and his staff have done a fantastic job and say, hey, if there's any, if there's any doubt or you're second guessing yourself, go. No hard feelings. Go. We want everyone all in, and I think Dana can provide that. I guess the way I would say it is more of a psychologist aspect to it, to where it's like, listen, I'm here to help you talk, through things, but I'm not here to necessarily be your friend. I'm here to coach you to get you better. I think every team needs to have that. You kind of have to have that hammer, good parent, bad parent, right? Every team needs that, especially in college football. And I think Dana kind of brings that aspect in there to bring that black and white and just say, this is what I see. And it didn't take him very long to say this isn't good enough. I mean, he called it embarrassing.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, good players respond to that because it's almost like a shock to the system. And you can take it one way or the other. You can say, I don't like that. I'm taking my ball and going home and a pout, or said, hey, I don't like being called out. I'm going to fix it. And I tell you what, a lot of those guys, it looked better on Saturday. And not from a point standpoint wise, but I think perimeter blocking and just some better execution offensively looked rather different.
Did your ears start ringing and get excited when you heard him talk about competition?
Love that. You got to have it. You have to have competition. You don't have competition, guys get fat and happy. It's just the natural way of the human body and how the human mind works. You have to be pressed. You have to, know that you have to go out there and earn it every day. And that's just a healthy way of doing it. So, I just think the times where I had good players, and behind me, Barry Turner, when I was at Nebraska, got recruited as a true freshman. So I knew, and they play as a true freshman. So if I knew I was not on my game, and if I slipped up at all, they had no problem putting him in because Barry was really, really good. So I had to be on my everything, I's dotted, T's crossed. You can't overlook anything because I didn't want to lose my spot. I didn't want Barry to take over my spot. Now you come in and give me a break every now and then, but there was no way I'm letting that guy come in and take my spot. So it's healthy. You need it, got to have it. You look back all the Pete Carroll days at USC, competition Tuesdays. You got to earn it. You got to do it. And Nebraska needs it because you got to have that to get over this hump. To start winning these close games, start winning the 6th game, the 7th game, the 8th game going forward. You look into next year and years down the road. You got to try to recreate game situation as close as possible, and that's the only way to do it is through competition.
Hey, I really liked last night. You, Michael, and Damon got into a discussion about offensive line. And Holgorsen kind of talked about the offensive line, and he pointed out a veteran, Ben Scott, made a mistake on one particular play. And then he tied in running backs, but he was very complimentary of the offensive line. And I think the offensive line has been good. It hasn't been great. They do have their limitations, but they have it's further down on the list of concerns on offense. As we now get to the last 2 games, and you hear an outsider's perspective of the offensive line and what you know, where do you think Nebraska is with their offensive line right now on how good they are, or can they improve and do something different over the last 2 games?
I think you can always improve and be better, without a doubt. But I think the offensive line always gets the fair share of the blame because of it's just they're easy. You're not successful running the football. Well, it's offensive line. Dylan Raiola's getting sacked too much. Oh, because the line can't protect. It was like, well, Damon's been vocal about it. I've been vocal about it to people, whether it's on Bigger Wrap Up or your guys' show or with Schmitty on Hell Varsity, or just talk to people in general. Like, I think they've been pretty darn good this year. Dylan's has hung on to the ball too much. Running backs have not seen the hole well enough. And I think it's I don't know why it takes a coach to come out and say it in a press conference that people are like, oh, maybe he's right. It's like, well, I just offensive line terminology, how they block, certain ways of doing things. It's complicated, and not throwing shade at the average watcher, but it's hard for them to comprehend. They just kind of see the end result and think, oh, our offensive line's not blocking. It's like, well, yeah, they are. The running back missed his hole by, he cut. He could have bounced it. He could do whatever. That's where the play was supposed to go, and they don't go there. You see Raiola getting sacked after he's been back there for 4 seconds. Is like, God, offensive line's got to protect that. No, Dylan's got to get rid of the ball. Offensive line can only pass pro for so long until your defensive ends or defensive linemen are gonna beat a offensive lineman and get back there. So I thought they've been fine. They've been good enough for this team to produce more. It's just a weird, it works together, man. And that's what has to work first is you have to have good offensive line play. And I think it's been good enough, but we haven't got consistent performance from the running backs. Haven't got consistent performance from the receivers. And Dylan showing freshman mistakes and just showing that, he's a young player. It's going to happen. And all that molded together gets you, an offense that, is averaging 18, 19 points a game, and they got to do better to get this thing to where it needs to go.
Hey, for people that didn't catch you last night, another topic that I was really engaged in, and Damon and I have had this discussion about tempo. And, the ball didn't stay in Dylan's hands very long. They went quick, and there were variations of the air raid that we saw, whether it be a mesh concept, they ran a crossing route. They had 4 verts. But what's your feeling when you hear the word tempo? Going fast, taking your time, changing it up where you put the defense on their heels. What's the best tempo you think for this offense? And did you see a difference on tempo on Saturday?
Yeah, a little bit. It's it's kind of, whether you want to call it tempo or rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
I think call it 6 one way, half a dozen the other, and you're kind of comparing the two. All offenses have to have good rhythm. I just think of all the, thinking back to Bill Callahan and, I was at the 49ers, Mike Martz was there for a little bit, and just other good OCs that know offensive football. They're always get out of the huddle, break the huddle, get to the line of scrimmage, tempo, rhythm. You got to get it going, because obviously you want to get to the line of scrimmage with enough time on the play clock so you can diagnose things. And especially if you're going to shift a lot, you got to have time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that, but then you just dictate. You're able to dictate what you are able to do. Motion, you get to the line of scrimmage quicker. You got to put guys in motion. That gives a quarterback a pretty clear-cut idea of what the coverage is going to be. They go in they motion and guys aren't moving. Probably going to be a man-to-man coverage, or zone coverage. If they're motioning and you're seeing corners run or whatever it is, linebackers, it's probably a man-to-man situation. So you got to be able to, the tempo and the rhythm is able to get you what you need to see from the defense, but also then put your guys in the best position to win their one-on-one battles and win in that play. So you can't be breaking the huddle with 10 seconds. Can't happen. Otherwise, you can't operate successfully. So the tempo, rhythm, whether that's you're going fast, but I think you want to get the play call in, get the call out so you can get to the line of scrimmage. And if you want to go quick, go quick. But it also gives you an opportunity to kind of slow down and just, okay, we're going to start in bunch formation to the boundary. We're going to shift back to the field. We're going to kind of see what the secondary is doing, how they're going to rotate here. And if we get what we like, perfect, let's go with it. If not, then maybe you did call 2 plays at line of scrimmage, or maybe Dylan says because you saw this that you're able to check out of it and say, okay, perfect. We got numbers this way. Instead of throwing it over here, we're going to run it over here because now they're short. They're one man short, and we can attack them this way. So you got to have the right, correct tempo and rhythm just so you can operate and function as efficiently as possible.
Have you narrowed down who Dana was talking about? This mysterious guy that's going to emerge on Saturday?
Yeah. It could be I brought it up last night on Big Red Wrap Up. I think the leading vote right now is Quinn Clark. That's the leading one.
He's a freak, man.
Yeah, it could be multiple guys now that you're down to 2 games. If guys haven't played, you don't have to worry about losing a red shirt. It could be a Malachi Coleman. It could be, but I maybe a Quentin Ives in the running back role or something different with Ramir being. I think I'm leaning towards a guy who can go out and make some plays, has some explosiveness, and no matter what, you just win that one-on-one battle. It could be, using Carter Nelson more. Carter's played a little bit, but more on special teams. They've had some packages and wrinkles. Maybe it's more, having Carter being in there. But I think it's going to be a guy like Quinn Clark, just because he's freaky, he's bouncy, he's twitchy, he's big bodied, and that's someone that you can just go up, throw the ball to, and it's like he's going to go get it and win that battle. So I'm leaning that way, but I'm excited to see who it could potentially be. I know my eyes will be open to see who's all out there on certain offensive plays and to see who they're trying to utilize. Because I think right now it's all hands on deck. You're trying to find anybody, anywhere to get you that extra first down, to get you that extra touchdown, to find that extra win that we so desperately need.
Jay Moore, black shirt, pride of Elkhorn, former Antler, and of course co-host on Big Red Wrap Up. Let's go over to the defense. Why is communication such an issue between the back end and the defensive call as a whole?
That is a fantastic question. It's frustrating to see. Just because those guys have played so much football, they've struggled. They've been so inconsistent all year. Really wasn't too concerned with the back end, just because Hartzog and Gifford, and I know Singleton has been hurt, but Buford's been banged up too throughout the time. But those guys have still played football, and they're older players, so the game's not moving too quickly. But even you throw Hill in there, I think he's hurt, and he hasn't played obviously up to his potential we saw earlier in the year. Sierra Wright stepped up big. I thought he's been the most consistent guy, through this back half of the season once Hill had the plantar fasciitis issue. I don't know why. Here's my honest thought. I think that with losing Evan Cooper so late in this process of, early in the season or just before camp, that's played a bigger role. I think we overlooked, having Coach Butler come in here, because we thought, with his pedigree, being at Penn State, being with the Buffalo Bills, we thought, oh, perfect. It's going to be a seamless transition, insert. It's going to be fine. I think there's just been a little, I don't know, the message has been a little, it's just been misconstrued. It just hasn't been clean. And it's just simple stuff. I mean, you heard Coach Rule say it, when it's cover 3, our guys got to be back there. If it's cover 2, you got to be the deepest of the deepest, and it's just not doing that. I think it's a mix of everything, but it's been rather disappointing because I just wasn't too concerned with that group. Whether it's been communication, they've just been out of whack all year for some reason. And I don't, if they can get put together, the last 2 games they got to do it. It's been interesting to see what Wisconsin's going to try to do. I think they're going to try to run the football. They're trying to implement what they did a lot last year against Nebraska up in Madison. They're trying to probably do a lot of things USC did to them in the run game with the counter action and stuff like that. But they got to be better. They got to be better, and I think they can. They've shown the ability to play really, really well at times. I just think to the Rutgers game, it's stepping up big, and I think to the Colorado game. I mean, they played really damn good against Colorado, and we've seen how good Colorado is now. But why is it the inconsistency? And it's hard to answer because I don't know, because it's not like they're young, and they tried putting young guys back there and they've been unsuccessful. They got to figure it out and come together. But that's the biggest thing. Communication is so key, so key. But teams, you put them in conflict though with motions, and you get tempo going on this defense. They've shown the ability to struggle because they can't communicate. So they got to get it cleaned up and figured out. Just again, like I said, repeat myself, that get that one more win.
What's it like to play on Senior Day? I know Senior Day, almost 20 years past your Senior Day is a little bit different because of the way college football rosters are built now. But what's it like to play on Senior Day? Last time you were playing in Memorial Stadium, what was that emotional like for you, and for what it'll be for some of the guys that are going to play an extended amount of time on Saturday?
Yeah, just thinking about it, I get goosebumps. It was obviously a really, really special day for me. Growing up in Nebraska, since I knew what Nebraska football was, that's what I wanted to do. And then being a part of it, and then knowing this is your last time doing it. Not gonna lie, I'm not a very emotional person. My wife can reiterate that too, but there was, I had walking out. It wasn't the Senior Day moment running out. It was, I think we did it earlier and then came back in. And when we got done saying our pregame prayer and knowing, I'm sitting there locked arms with Stu Bradley and Corey McEwen, who we kind of always walked out together with, and two of my best friends to this day, I had tears in my eyes just because I knew what a ride it's been, and wasn't able to experience that moment again. And it was hard because you get so emotional like that, but they're like, hey, you got to suck it up here. You got to go out and play a football game. But yeah, man, it was awesome. My brother was on the team as a walk-on, so he was able to get my family photo with my mom and dad, and him and I in uniform. It was cool. It was awesome. I hope the guys enjoy it. I hope they can go out and get a win because it's such a great day. We were able to beat up on Colorado that day, so it made it even better. But it's for me, it was a special day, man. I'll never forget it. Those emotions I felt. I tried to cherish every second of it because it's not too many guys can say they lived a childhood dream and lived it out and it did it like I did it. So I'll definitely never forget it.
That's awesome. Jay, as always, I appreciate the time and the insight. Thank you.
Yep, you bet. Sounds good. Talk to you next week.
That's Jay Moore. He is the co-host of Big Red Wrap-Up on Nebraska Public Media. Him and Michael and Damon do a fantastic job. Become a must-watch, as always, on Tuesday nights, wherever you can find it. Sometimes it's on the 16, sometimes it's on the 12, depending on if you have Cox Cable or not. All right, Brandon Vogel still to come from Counter Read. He's got plenty of thoughts on what he heard yesterday and what it may look like moving forward for the last two games and beyond. So we'll get to Brandon coming up before we turn it over to the Connor Happer Show. This is the Gary Sharp Show at 1620 The Zone.
1620 The Zone, that's us, is partnering with Circa Casino, that's them, and Resort to hook you up with Creighton tickets. They play here. Win a pair of tickets to each of Creighton men's basketball's conference home games. All the teams you love to root against. Sign up to win now at 1620thezone.com. And it's the bowl game blowout 15K giveaway on 1620 The Zone. Man, we're giving away the money this year. You want to get involved? Enter to win big this holiday season with $15,000. I don't know if they'll pay it all in ones, but I'm sure you can ask. Get enter to win now. 1620thezone.com.
All right, coming up in about 10 minutes, Brandon Vogel from counterread.com will join us. So you have two teams that are 5-5 playing at 2:30 in Memorial Stadium on Saturday. Final home game of the year. Nebraska has another opportunity to become bowl eligible for the first time since 2016, and also beat Wisconsin for the first time since Dylan Raiola was a first grader.
Wow.
The last time Nebraska beat Wisconsin, Dylan Raiola was a first grader. And Wisconsin comes to town, and they've made a change with their offensive coordinator, and we are all still mystified of why did Luke Fickell, to begin his career at Wisconsin, go with Phil Longo. Said this earlier, like the offensive coordinator and DC, both your coordinator jobs are your two most important hires. I also put up your offensive line coach and your strength and conditioning coach. But your coordinators, but at least one of them is somebody you've worked with or familiar with. So at least you have that side of the ball that you know what's going to go on. They know you. They know what you want. You can kind of work together. And then, you know what? After 21 games, you decide this ain't working out. We got to make a change. But I never got the feeling that there was a connection between Fickell and Longo, and Luke Fickell was bought into the style that they were going to run. Like they were going to run the Phil Longo offense. And I don't know, unless he looked at Wisconsin's roster and thought this is the most ideal thing to do until we get it fixed with the offensive line or whatever he was looking at, because they really had nothing in common and seemed to be disconnected from the start. Now, they've had some injuries. They've also had the reality of their skill talent has not been up to par, and their offensive line has not been what we're used to at Wisconsin, which is essentially a mini NFL offensive line. Also, quarterback. You know, Mordecai was beat up last year. He looked good against Nebraska. They go into the portal. They get Tyler Van Dyke from Miami. And now they've got Braden Locke as their quarterback. So the last 4 games, Locke is thrown for 4.5 yards per play. That's not good.
Good if you're a running back running the ball.
49.5 completion percentage. Now, this is where Nebraska is going to have to make their hay on Saturday. He's become a turnover machine. If you saw him play against Purdue, you thought, who is that guy? That guy looks completely different. But he has a propensity to turn the ball over. He has 7 starts, and he has the 4th most interceptions in the Big Ten. So he's going to give you the football. What are you going to do with the football when you get that turnover? Are you going to turn it into a Sierra Wright pick 6, or are you going to put it in good position where it's more than a field goal, it's a touchdown? So they're a mysterious team on what they're going to do offensively. Now, I think they will come in and maybe they are closer to what Luke Fickell wants to be as an offense. And that is run the football. I mean, they have the ability to run the football.
It's a great formula at Wisconsin. Great formula at Nebraska.
But they are anemic offensively. I mean, this has 15-14 written all over it again. But does the offense look like what Luke Fickell wants to run? Because Nebraska's offense might look like more of what Matt Rule would like to run.
Watching Wisconsin Saturday night was a rough watch.
I mean, defensively, and again, what the big thing for Wisconsin isn't who's calling plays. It is 2 key guys on both sides of the ball that may or may not play. If they don't have Woolner, that's a big loss. Pauling would be a loss. Just looking at his response during on TV when he got injured, I don't know if he's going to play. So those are 2 big factors for them because those are 2 key components. But is Luke Fickell going to do what he wants to do offensively for the first time in his career at Madison? He will run an offense that he is more comfortable with, because I never got the sense that he bought into that offense, which is crazy because he went outside of the box and brought somebody in whose philosophy on offense didn't necessarily match him. And I don't know if it was because of his assessment of the roster before he ever got on the field with them, or he wanted to be different. And that's the way that Wisconsin had to differentiate themselves from the rest of the league in terms of recruiting and moving forward. Because it was a weird combination. And
we said it from the beginning.
And Luke Fickell's feeling it. I mean, people are like, man, are you going to be the guy that doesn't go to a bowl game 22 straight years? You don't go to a bowl game?
Yeah.
That's on your tab. So we'll see what their offense looks like. But their offense can only go as far as their quarterback play. And Nebraska's going to be able to, they're going to get a couple of picks. And they're going to need to turn those picks into points that are not just John Hole.
And we're looking at 45 to 50 degrees, closer to 50 on Saturday.
The weather looks great.
Light wind,
lightish wind. So then are we going to be screwed on Black Friday? It's going to be like 15 degrees and snowing in Iowa City at night?
It's looking to be very cold next week all across our area.
It is?
Yeah. 30s and teens. Yeah. Now maybe Iowa City will have a warm front just over them and it'll be 67.
And we'll be bitching about night games in late
November.
It's
going to be cold there.
When has it not been cold in Iowa City?
July?
That's true.
Maybe.
There have been some bitterly cold games when Nebraska's played at Iowa.
Yeah.
Now, the last time they were at Nebraska won, because people forget, Nebraska went to Iowa City in football and went to Omaha in basketball and won.
Mm-hmm. I remember.
The weather that night, or that was a late afternoon game. The weather was not bad that day.
No, 50s, I think. Sunny.
All right, Brandon Vogel from Counter Read will join us. He's got lots of thoughts on what he saw on Saturday and what he heard yesterday. And you know what? We're all lucky enough he's going to share them with us. Coming up next on 1620 The Zone. All right, as we do every Wednesday here on the show, we get to chat with our good friend from counterread.com, where if you are not a subscriber, you are missing out on a lot of fantastic content and funny stuff that is written by our next guest, Brandon Vogel and Aaron Sorensen. Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's. I know there's a lot to talk about this week, and especially yesterday and ahead of Wisconsin, but I'm not ready to put a wrap on USC yet. What's the emotion that should be the proper way to handle the game on Saturday against USC?
Yeah, it's kind of a tough one because I think a lot of Husker fans certainly felt the sting of, well, another game that literally ended with an interception down in scoring territory. That said, it kind of played out, the way you would have thought. I think based on the line. Based on the uncertainty around Nebraska and what it could do offensively. Like I think there were moments there that were encouraging for the offense, taking a continuing step forward. But at this point, like I think all that stuff's kind of gone, and it's just like, can they get one more and get to six at least? And until they do that, every loss is going to feel like a little bit of another mini catastrophe.
And you wrote about this, and we've talked about the process and challenges along the way. Does a game like Saturday at USC just pause the process? Does it knock it off the road? What does another game like that do to a head coach that is just trying to get to six, but get that road moving quicker down the highway?
Yeah, I think I'd still be in pause territory for now. Now, if Nebraska doesn't get that sixth win, and we've all seen like the scare stats that are already out there about Rule's record with bowl eligibility on the line and what it would be with two more losses, like at that point, I think you'd be really in for what has the potential to be a pretty rough offseason in terms of departures, just the big picture questions. We'll be back in a spot we were in 2020 when, those first couple of months when we could just think about like a normal football season of people being like, I'm not buying in again. Like been through this too many times. The 2019 Nebraska team was supposed to be drastically better. It wasn't. So it's kind of dangerous territory. I think Nebraska finds itself in at the moment, pending the result of these last two.
Thoughts yesterday as you listened to somebody who was talking ball, and you're a guy that loves to hear and talk ball.
Well, first of all, he sounds so much like Leach. It actually gave me pause. I had to make sure who was actually up there. But I mean, the bluntness. I know it was well received by Husker fans, and I like it too. It's good to have a guy get up there and be able to tell you just like it is. Rule does a good job, I think, of being pretty open, but he always knows where his line is, like where he's willing to go, and what he's willing to say. Dana, it doesn't seem has that line, or if he knows where it's at, he's not all that worried about it. So you get things like his comments to the wide receivers about the blocking to that point, and his comment about the run game, which I don't know if a halftime pep talk changed everything, but Nebraska averaged over 6 yards of carry in the second half, so something got home.
So there's the dynamic of listening to him yesterday. Like, what do you think like do you think Rule said to him? Because we've heard assistants say, we take our lead from the head man. Do you think in this case, because of Dana's background and Dana is known, that he just said, it's yours. You can do what you want to do. That side of the ball is yours. I'm going to leave you alone.
That would be my guess. Because why make that change otherwise? And it's also, I think, the antidote to what Nebraska had previously. Marcus Satterfield, like Rule might believe in him based on his track record more than anybody else out there, which is fine. He's worked with him for a lot of time, so he certainly sees things that most people don't. But when you look at Satterfield and where he's been in his production, like it's not upper half even of kind of power conference coordinators. It hasn't been. So I think if you're going to make that move, and these things are difficult to do, particularly in season, you
Mhm.
almost got to go with somebody that was like rethink everything that I've thought about this, because you can go back to the Satterfield, we're going to huddle, kind of his opening salvo about what the offense was going to be, and it was all a reflection of Nebraska's defense, I think. Which is fine. You got to be able to play complementary styles too. But at this point, Nebraska needed a shakeup, and I think that's what Rule went out and got.
And we saw guys that, I don't know if it's fear or a different set of eyes and a different voice, they responded differently. But there's also part of, and it's been a 2-week theme around here after the head coach started it. And Holgorsen kind of went there yesterday. He did a good job. He spoke like a head coach who balanced the players got to do their job, but we also have to do our job to help the players do a better job. Do you think that if you look at Saturday, because I thought there were times where the players let the scheme down on Saturday, that what Rule is saying about players need to make plays, he got validated from the game on Saturday?
Yeah, I think so. And so to hear Holgerson say it again yesterday certainly back that piece of it up. And that's a tricky one. Is what we could use, the talk about the running backs as an example. Is missing a coaching thing? Is it a talent thing? Because we know, like, making a guy miss at the second level, that's just a talent thing, right?
Yep.
Or vision, whatever, however you want to term it. So I do think it remains a combination of both. It's not the sort of thing I think you fix in your 11th game of the season. So it's kind of like, how can you work around it? And that was another reason I think it was valuable, just to get an outside opinion on that. And yeah, you did see a different response from some guys in terms of the positive one. And I think that's, you inject a little hope of like, okay, here's something different. Like, we recognize it hasn't been good enough, and here's our effort to change it. Um, you know, that should lift most boats, I would think, having that scenario.
Red flag on defense? Any part of the rush defense that has thrown up a red flag for you in this 4-game losing streak?
Uh, Not so much on last week against USC. Like, I kind of came into that, and I'll always give Lincoln Riley his credit in terms of the run game. It's a good scheme. They got talented players. And they do a good job of getting the ball. And I thought it was, Tony White yesterday, I thought was interesting, saying he didn't do a good enough job adjusting. That's the challenge, I think, of facing a Lincoln Riley team. Like, they're going to keep you on your toes, and he's one step ahead of a lot of people out there who have tried to stop his running games in the past. So not so much for, the number was big against USC, but this is still a defense that I think can defend the run, not like it did last year, but
Mhm.
it has a kind of top third team in the country, which is better than us defending the pass,
Yeah.
of course, lately. That's kind of become the glaring weakness, I think, particularly as they've entered Big Ten play.
I asked Jay Moore previously about the communication. The defensive backs, they're off compared to what the call is. Like, if you're supposed to be in cover 2, like a Buford and a Hartzog show up on the snap and they're not in that defense. Is there, should we start to, because we talked about at the beginning of the year what the impact would be with the helmet communication, but we really focused on the offense. Should we have a discussion about maybe the helmet communication in the defense has caused issues or hasn't been what we thought it was going to be, and maybe that has led to some of the differences on the back end not matching what the full call is?
Could be. That would certainly be a good question, for Rule. Maybe not entering a short week against Iowa, but for whatever that postseason, big sit down looks like. 'Cause I hadn't really considered that, but it's hard to figure that they've had those instances where they've just, been mismatched in terms of what they thought they were doing with such a veteran group. I mean, I think back to, like, we all know it wasn't ideal, Nebraska having to make a position coach switch in July. But it seems like, given the experience Nebraska has in secondary, never mind the talent, um, it feels a little bit like that's come to a head of late. Like, John Butler, I think's a good coach. It's just he showed up in July and had to hit the ground running, which there's a reason staffs don't voluntarily make that kind of move.
Thoughts on the weird relationship between Luke Fickell and Phil Longo to start at Wisconsin that came to an end earlier this week?
Yeah, it certainly seems, based on his press conference Monday, that it may have been as much a kind of a personality type of thing. He brought up leadership, which I thought was an interesting insertion while actively trying not to talk about it. I mean, it was a bold hire, and at the time, and anyone, well, I'm sure Wisconsin fans had a ton of questions, but even us just on the outside, like, okay, you're going to go away from everything that's won there in a while. So it was interesting in that regard. I mean, from a numbers perspective, like, I'm writing this for the preview tomorrow, like, this is almost the exact same game we had a year ago. Both teams still 5-5, and from a numbers perspective, it's like it's almost shocking in terms of like where they're at. So it's not like the offense had taken a steep decline from I think where it was. Like, it wasn't what anybody wanted it to be at Wisconsin, but it wasn't off that by very much. In fact, it was a little bit better this year, kind of to the same degree Nebraska is. So the firing at this point in the season does tell me it was something probably more than just the on-field results.
So, and I hadn't thought of that angle, but I'm listening to some of the stuff Fickle said, and I think Brandon, you're absolutely right that there were maybe some philosophical differences and some butting of heads, and you're 23 games in, and you can't afford to go down this path much further because you got to fix your quarterback position. But is there a lesson to be learned about quote unquote an air raid guy in Madison, Wisconsin? And now the guy that's calling plays, his specialty is air raid that's living in Lincoln.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I think it plays into this game too because you look at that Wisconsin defense, and I think Nebraska's opportunity here is to run the football. You know, can they do that with Dana Holgorsen? And I think there's a case to be made that they can. The numbers from that USC game, I kind of dig into them, look pretty good from that standpoint. But yeah, it's another. I mean, this game's just fascinating on a lot of levels. But that's one of them. It's like, oh, Wisconsin's ditching their air raid disciple. Meanwhile, Nebraska just brought one in, and for both of these programs to be kind of at the same spot, almost exactly 1 year on they were a year ago, certainly adds to that. I mean, I think from what we've seen from Nebraska, it's obvious they need more offense. They need more points. Like, winning the Iowa way, which is the only way they've been able to win games under Rule so far, hasn't worked enough for them. And I think it's fair to question how much longer that works in a Big Ten that doesn't have divisions anymore.
Yeah, that's yeah. Do we have a minute or two to talk about that? How ridiculous it was yesterday that Oregon at 4:00 in the afternoon found out that they're going to Indianapolis.
Yeah, pretty ridiculous. Like the whole tiebreaker scenario, and it's not just the Big Ten, it's like all over. It's like you can't even make a lot of sense of these races because many of them are close, and like you got to go through 8 tiebreakers to figure it out. I don't know what the alternative is. That'll probably be an off-season project of mine to come up with some crazy scheme that might help us out of this. I mean, well, Lane Kiffin said this week, like, scuttlebutt amongst SEC coaches is they don't want to be in the championship game
Yeah.
because if you lose, you're probably out. So yeah, this conference championship piece of it, we've really made a mess of it. I'm in favor of rewarding a conference championship, but this is not clean enough for anybody, I don't think.
Monday morning, when I get my latest edition of Counter Read in my inbox, will it be talking about Nebraska going bowling?
I think so. I think that's my projection now. It's going to be another close one. So it's kind of like, why pick Nebraska to finally get it done this time? A little bit like last year. I mean, people are worried around Nebraska football, but Wisconsin's also had the past couple of weeks that make me feel like they might be having a little bit more of an existential crisis. So maybe this time at home that can play to the Huskers' advantage.
Well, it would make a lot of people's Saturdays, that's for sure. As always, my friend, I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
That's Brandon Vogel from counterread.com. Become a subscriber of the Substack. Him and Aaron do a fantastic job of covering not just Nebraska football, but all Nebraska sports. And especially when Brandon gets writing and he can write and he just breaks things down. Good recap of the USC game that brought up a lot of questions. That's counterread.com. All right. Thank you to everybody. You helped us get through not the easiest of days for this show. But so thank you to all of our listeners. Thank you to Jimmy, our guests, Jay and Brandon. And we will be back again tomorrow at 6. The Connor Happer Show is coming up next on 1620 The Zone.